Do 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 do. There you go. Yeah, man, I like that. Rajan coming in big. How's the family, man? I hope everything's good because I know you're listening right now. How's Jax? All right. Wow. What an amazing week on Fade to Black. I got to tell you, the two Smiths, Mrs. Smith and Mr. Smith, 2 nights in a row. Tonight we're going to do the disclosure movement, and we've got Steve Bassett checking in with us, and we have Dr. Lisa Galarneau here tonight too as well, first-time guest. She's part of the disclosure movement and works with Mr. Bassett. And so we're going to have her up first. Ronnie McMullen is going to be here from Life Change Tea and Ancient Life Oil. We're going to talk some CBD tonight, see if we can get kicked off of YouTube. That'll be fun. And so there you go. All right. And I got to say... nothing but a long line of phone calls today with those out there about what's going on. It's crazy. I mean, last week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or something every single day. And barely got to the weekend. Man. All right, here we go. Enjoy the show tonight. Disclosure.
Radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Good evening. How you doing? Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Yeah, man. Today's Wednesday, July 11th, 2018. 192 days into the new year, just 173 days left. We are live from a bunker somewhere in beautiful downtown Burbank, California. I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? How you doing? You like this shirt? You digging that? That's from the good Reverend Jimmy and Sarah. They sent me a collection of Hawaiian shirts from the UK, from Dover. And yeah, so I wore this one tonight because it's a Fade to Black Hawaiian shirt. It's pretty cool, isn't it? kind of digging it. It's a mood changer. Yeah. Sometimes you just gotta change your shirt. That's right, and I did. Yeah, it's really, really a nice shirt. So thank you. And Mika, thank you so much. All right. It's all good. How is everybody doing tonight? I'm in a great mood. And yeah, the shirt had a lot to do with it. Crazy day today. And gearing up for tonight's show, we've got Steve Bassett here, and we have first-time guest, Dr. Lisa Galarneau, is going to be with us at the bottom of the hour in a few short minutes. Ronnie McMullen is going to be here from Ancient Life Oils. And we'll talk a little CBD and get ready for Dr. Lisa at the bottom of the hour. Tonight, we're going to discuss the disclosure movement. We've had Stephen on with us so many times over the years, and I love hanging out with him. He is so committed, and he's definitely Mr. Disclosure. There's no doubt about it. And so we're going to get caught up with Stephen on all aspects of the disclosure movement. And Dr. Lisa Galarneau, who's going to be with us at the bottom of the hour, has been working with Steve. So we're going to get what she is doing as well. And her background is very, very interesting. And I think it's great to have somebody of her caliber to join our community, and where she came from and her background is very interesting. So we're going to go through all of that tonight and her efforts into the disclosure movement. So that's our show tonight. What an interesting week we've had on Fade to Black here. We had the two Smiths on. We had Mrs. Smith on Monday night, an amazing guitar player, guitar goddess. And what a great show that was. I had so much fun doing that. And then to roll that right over to Emery Smith last night. Emery, who I've interviewed so many times. I've done 3 conferences this year with Emery. And last night, and I posted today over at On Stellar. You can go and read what I had to say about Emery in the show last night. Emery and I have a way of dialogue, and when you do that, and like we did last night, things just happen. And last night was just one of those shows, and I got to the end of the show and I thought, wow, that was really, really cool. And so what a week, right? And I've got a few comments. We've got Ronnie coming in here in just a bit, so but I just wanted to say, when it comes to, and I asked Emery last night before one of the commercial breaks, I said, Emery, either we're dealing with you, A, B, C, or D, and I think I got to D. And his answer was an interesting one, but those questions need to be asked. And for anybody out there that thinks that I don't ask those questions or that those thoughts aren't on my mind, they are, just like you. And those questions have to get asked. And there you go. And it was just a very colorful, comprehensive, information-filled show last night. So if you haven't caught it, it's up, it's in the archives, it's there. You can go and check it out. It's also over on YouTube. And go and check it out. In case you were one of the few that missed the show, you can check out what I have posted over at OnStellar, OnStellar.com. If you haven't registered over at OnStellar, go and do it now. And when you do, don't forget to post your profile picture, but send me a friend request, okay? And if you don't have a profile picture yet, I was going to shoot a video. Man, I got to get out of here. I got to get ready for Ronnie. I was going to shoot a video of me scrolling through friend requests that have the OnStellar alien for the profile pic. It's so long. It's thousands. I'm not kidding. I haven't counted, But if I scroll it really slow, I can get through it in about a minute. And I was going to shoot a video of that thing scrolling. It's nuts. And I know that there are so many out there that sent me friend requests, and they're going, hey, man, what's up with this church guy? Right? Well, I'm telling you, upload something. Upload an image there so I know that you're not a bot. Just post something. I don't care. Post a picture of your dog, your cat, your refrigerator. I don't care. But if you do that, I'll reply. Okay, it's really that simple. Okay. Let's get to everything that I've got to get to tonight. Okay, breaking news. The head of the project sector at the Ministry of Antiquities, Wad Abdul Ilah, revealed, this is in Egypt, Giza, revealed the plan to be used to lift the 30-ton sarcophagus and transfer it to one of Alexandria's archaeological sites. Abdul Ilah said today, and I'm quoting here, that the plan consists of two steps. One, the first is filling the area surrounding the sarcophagus, then lifting the sarcophagus by a tow truck in a scientific way that does not harm the antiquity, end quote. Now put that in your pipe and smoke it. Unbelievable. What is in that sarcophagus? I cannot wait. I just cannot wait. All right. Also, right now, 20% discounts on all offerings from River Moon Coffee. It's very simple. Use the code Coffee Break. Promo code Coffee Break. 2 words, Coffee Break. rivermooncoffee.com. Go and get yourself some. And it works with Fade to Black Blend. And if you haven't gotten Fade to Black Blend yet, haven't tried it out, go and do a 20% discount. If you have, now you've got an extra discount, and you know how good it is. You know you want some. Go now, rivermooncoffee.com, promo code Coffee Break. All right, now let me get to everything I want to get to before Ronnie gets in here. Ronnie McMullen, which is, happy birthday to today, Lil' Kim is 44. That's right. Also, today, fate or not, and friend, Michelle Harris is 29 years old. Happy birthday, Michelle. I know you guys are tearing it up tonight. And next year, on Fade to Black, next year, Michelle will get that 29-year-old birthday shout out to as well. Happy birthday, Michelle. Give my best to the family. All right, on this day in history, OTD 1979, Skylab, America's first space station, comes crashing down onto Australia and into the Indian Ocean after only 5 years after the last manned Skylab mission ended. Now, check this out. No one was injured, but it was launched in 1973. So you do the math. That's nuts. And I love Skylab, too. It was such a part of my childhood. All right, Fader fact. Helmet. Now, this is a Fader fact that I'm going to bring Ronnie McMullen on here in just a second. And I'm going to give you this Fader fact. And I'm going to ask Ronnie about it, number one. Number two, I want to know tomorrow on the show if you are going to repeat this Fader fact to a friend. Okay? Are you ready? Helmut Simon, the man who found the 5,000-year-old Otzi the Iceman in 1991, was also found dead, frozen in ice in 2004. Some things I just have to share with you. I have to. Is that the craziest Fader fact ever? Somebody wants me to put together a book of Fader facts. What I think I'm going to do, it's a lot of work because I've been doing it for years and years, but I have everything archived. And I'm wondering, maybe we should do maybe something on the site, on the website, and archive them there for everybody. But maybe I should put a book together. I think it would be rather interesting, but it would have to be updated all the time. I guess if you did an ebook, you can update an ebook electronically, right? And then you can, I got to think about that. do a PDF version, a downloadable version, and then we just update it every day? And then you could update the last page and just add it? Yeah, you could do that. Something to think about. Let's bring on Ronnie McMullen from Ancient Life Oil. Ronnie, good evening, my friend. How are you?
Good. How you doing, Jimmy?
Man, you sound loud. You should do radio.
That's funny.
You've got the voice.
Yeah, I've told that, but when you listen to your own voice, you don't think so. You think you sounds like a car driving in the tunnel or something.
I can't stand it. After the show, each night I'll leave the bunker. I'll go down the hall into Rita's studio, and she's in there working, and she's always listening to the show. Right? She needs to critique me when I walk in and tell me, how bad it sucked. But I'm listening to my voice, and I swear, nails on a chalkboard are pleasant. I can't stand it, man. I cannot.
But you see, your voice is good.
No,
I don't want to give you a big head or anything.
No,
you have a great pair of lungs. So,
no.
You're doing good. But here's the kicker. Okay, most everybody that is a radio host, talk show host, whatever, they don't like their own voice.
Well, and there's something else, man. I've got Steve Bassett calling me. What is he doing? He's not on the show for another hour. Oh no! I'm going to let him just hang. I'm going to let him. He's not on the show for an hour. Why would he? That is funny. I shouldn't have even said anything. And this is the truth. Ronnie, you talk to me on the phone all the time. Is it the same voice on the phone grating into your ear that you're listening to right now?
I know about grading, but yeah, it's the same voice.
And it's just the way that it is. You and I have hung out in public. It's the same voice.
I hope so. If it's not, it's going to be kind of eerie.
It's got to just cause ear bleeding. It has to. Well, anyway, welcome back, Ronnie. How are you? Everything good?
Everything's good. Everything's great.
How's your race car?
Oh, I'm so excited. We're getting ready for the Las Vegas to Reno, and we're hoping to place number 1.
Las Vegas to Reno? How do you do that? What?
It's if I remember right, I think it's 600 something miles. It's a long race. And I'm kind of excited, So it's the car looks good. In fact, we got a new T coming out that is going to have the race cars right on the front.
It's off road though.
It's off-road, Class 10.
Right. Yep. So how do you get to Reno from Las Vegas? Okay, I get the desert part, but then you get up to the mountains and forest. Wow, that's got to be crazy. I want to see the route.
It's a wild run, and we're hoping we'll have. We're not hoping. We know we will, but we'll have some helicopter footage too. So when I get some goods, I'll send it over to you to post.
I would love to see it. Wait a minute. I love talking race cars. I love anything that has a motor in it. But did you just say new T?
Yeah, new T's coming. It is. We should have it in about 3 weeks, right before the race, and it's going to be peppermint flavored. Peppermint flavored,
same formulation, just with some taste.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, very interesting. Now, in 2 weeks.
In 2 to 3 weeks, yeah.
Okay, and it'll be on the. Is it on the website now? Can people pre-order?
No, no pre-ordering yet. Well, I might work that out, but I want to get it closer to like a week, so they're not waiting in the balance for too long.
Yeah, somebody sent me an email. I think it was last month about pre-ordering your stuff. You don't do that, really, do you?
No, I don't. And the only reason I don't is because a lot of times pre-ordering, I don't know. I don't like having people's money and they don't have my product. So maybe I'm weird that way.
Right. No, I get that. But it seems like people, I don't know why there are those out there that expect it, and I don't have an answer for it. I don't allow pre-orders. So
yeah.
There you go. Now let's get over to CBD. A lot of controversy around CBD right now on a couple of different fronts. One of them is there are Big Pharma now has got a couple of drugs out that are CBD drugs.
Yeah. Well, they have their drug takes away 40% of epilepsy. So, and their drug it's funny. It's mostly CBD and it's from marijuana, with a little bit of this and that, very little this and that. So what they're wanting to do is shut out the CBD guys to say, hey, you can't sell this because it's a drug. And the FDA is, of course, backing Big Pharma, of course. They would never want to back anything natural or normal. And so it's kind of funny. And, our CBD, and this is something for people to really understand, CBD is derived from marijuana or CBD is derived from hemp. And there's a difference. Usually the marijuana will carry THC and the hemp will not. So ours tests out at 003, or actually it's tested out a lot less. So if you're worried about getting high, then you want to get the CBD from hemp. And it's, I love it. I mean, it's incredible, the reorders. And so, and the other thing I wanted to say, Jimmy, is a lot of people that have come to me from you, they might say, well, geez, we tried to order, but, we got kicked out. Our cards got kicked out and declined, and we had the money and all that. And you know what? I apologize to everybody. It was a stupid bank. So it wasn't you. It's because it goes to the UK, and when it goes to the UK, the banks kick it out. Your bank is kicking it out to protect you. So it's a really kind of a cool thing. It's a non-cool thing about it is you didn't get any CBD. Well, now we changed, and so we are in the United States. Yes, and so you can order, and you won't get declined. So anyway, just some good news.
How does that? Okay, so you just said UK. I maybe I missed something there.
Yeah. Well, the banks are funky. Okay, so our banking is, you can't just sell CBD like you can sell tea or you can sell anything else. There's a lot of, it's considered high risk. It's considered, so many things. So the banks say, hey, since this is really under a huge debate with FDA and the DEA and just about every government entity, which, by the way, the Farm Bill the Senate and the House has already passed the CBD Farm Bill Act. So this is all good. So we're just waiting for the final connection. But long and the short of it is the bankers know that it's been hard for us to get banking. So in other words, hard for us to get companies to take your credit cards. So they say, since it's so hard and there's so much stuff around it, we're going to charge you 10, 12, 15%, some of them 20%. Which, if you had a normal account, might be 4% or 5%. So it's really, it's been a rat race, and we have been through hell and back. But I would not even do this, but the benefits of CBD are so crazy. I'll tell just a real quick story. So I have a dog, obviously, don't we all? And I have this little dog. Her name's Miss Piggy. She's Shar-Pei and hound dog, so she looks like a little pig. And she got this growth underneath her tummy. And this growth got bigger and bigger and bigger and was kind of a pretty good size, about the size between a nickel and a quarter, and probably 1/2 to 3/4 inch tall. So they definitely said it was cancerous. You need to take this off right away. And I don't like my dogs under anesthesia, especially the Shar-Pei, because they die. I've lost 2 Shar-Peis. So with this being in the balance, I said, I decided to get a little doggy biscuit, get my CBD out. Started putting CBD on doggy biscuits. I kid you not. It took a little while. It took about a month. And that CBD has eaten almost, and she said it was cancer, so whatever you want to call it. But it was a big growth, like a tumor kind of thing. And that CBD has eaten it alive, and so it's almost flat now. You can see where it is, but it's almost flat. So it kind of took my vet back too. So that gives you an idea.
What is the international considerations when it comes to CBD? How are other countries looking at it? Do you ship internationally?
I do not, just the United States. As soon as I can get all the legal ramifications to be good to go, which is going to take a little while, I will open up the gateway and say, come get Ancient Life Oil in the UK, Australia, wherever, Japan, all this. But right now we are just limited to the United States. I heard we're getting there with Canada, but I still got to do my homework and make sure. And we don't even have 50 states. We have 49. Nebraska is still like, so they're not making it legal. So you guys in Nebraska, you're going to have to go talk to your friends maybe over in Colorado or Illinois or wherever. Not Illinois, Iowa. But you're going to have to talk to your friends and do it that way. But long and the short of it, we're trying really hard to get to everybody.
The other parts of it where I recently was sent, I couldn't believe it. It came in on one of my email accounts from Google, giving me a list of banned things, right? And it was crazy too. It was a long list of stuff, and which, whatever, I can understand that. But then right there, out of all of these products, and some of them were medical, some were not. They could have been tools or whatever, shoes. But their CBD was listed. And I don't understand when it's legal in all 50 states. I understand the federal implications of it, but now Big Pharma is now moving forward with it.
Oh, yeah, and the FDA is so behind them. Oh, this is so great. It's going to heal people. And they didn't see heal, but it's going to help people. Epilepsy, blah, blah. Well, what do you think the straight does? Just ask you that. So what do you think the straight does? The thing, like I said, I wouldn't even mess with this company because it's a big pain in the rear. But let me tell you something. What it does for people is over the top. Remember my dog's story. And people say, you have CBD for pets? Yes. How is it different? I'm going to even answer this right now. How is it different from the ones that the humans have? It's the same.
Yeah, right. Of course.
It's just a picture on the bottle.
Right,
so
right,
it's the same.
Right.
Except I don't do chocolate mint or cinnamon. I don't do that for the dogs because I just give them the natural. Cinnamon breath for my doggie.
That is too funny. Well, I've got a few dogs that could actually use that. And I had said to you today, it was weird. Rita and I, so we ran out, right? We run out of CBD. And after about a week, which was last night, I'm like feeling, like a little cranky. I was like, man. And so I couldn't even squeeze a drop out of the bottle. And I told Rita, I said, I'm just going to go downstairs and eat a couple spoonfuls of honey. I got to do something here. My body is screaming for it, and it's an astonishing thing for me to go through, Ronnie, because you have helped me over the last couple of years that you have been with us. You have helped me change myself, not only through the teas and through pine bark, which I have here, and olive leaf, which I have here, and the GI Joy, which and I take these every single day. And the transformation has been absolutely amazing. But then when I run out, I panic.
Yeah.
And I panicked last night. I'm like, I have a jar of honey, a little jar. It's $50, right? What do they call it? Manuka honey? Am I saying it wrong? Makuna honey? I don't know. It's some crazy stuff from New Zealand. And
I literally have people, and this is funny. I literally have people, they'll order the tea and they'll do priority and they'll do, overnight. They want it overnight. And I thinking to myself, you're going to pay all this money for overnight because it's pricey because you need the tea. Which is good. That's correct. But why didn't you order it a week ago?
Right.
Where you could just get it for, just the cheap shipping or whatever.
Right.
Or why don't you order 3 months worth or 6 months worth or whatever, get a deal and have it there. But they don't. It's like, that's fine. If that's what you want to do. But that's like somebody going into a brand new dealership, a Mercedes dealership, and saying, I want the car and I'll pay you full price. I just can't even imagine stuff like that.
I know. Well, last night I was there. I was right there. I was right there. And I know what my body needs now. And it's the other things too as well, Ronnie, that I've eliminated from my diet. It's crazy. There's things that I won't let go of. I'm never going to get rid of great Italian food, great Mexican food. There's things I'm not going to give up. But sodas, done. I mean, I just don't. It's been a few years, and that's pretty crazy for me to even talk like that. But I've changed, and it's something that once you plug your mind into and you start to see the transition, it takes a few months, but when you see it, you realize, and you've got to start taking care of yourself. None of us are 20 years old anymore.
Well, you're going to be excited because the rumor is still cooking that Get the Tea is going to bottle.
I know. I haven't talked about that yet. Oh, it's Hakuna Matata honey.
Yeah.
That's what Rita
just posted. Does it say
posted.
Disney on the top?
It's amazing. Oh, it's amazing. It's really amazing. Yeah, it comes from one specific flower in New Zealand with a specific kind of bee. It's seasonal. It's all of these but wow. And it looks like peanut butter. It's not clear.
Right.
Just so you understand.
It's the good stuff.
We're all used to, right? Subi honey, right? It's squeezed out of that bear bottle or whatever it is, and this is it's thick and it's like looks like peanut butter. That's the best way to describe it. Well, listen, Ronnie, I got to get out of here, my friend. The promo code is Fader, Fader. Of course, the website. Oh, does Fader apply to Ancient Life Oil?
It doesn't, but we're in the works of doing some stuff. I can't share what we're going to do, but it's going to be good for the people. Put it that way.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go.
It's coming.
Life Change Tea Fader is good, and everything else is over in Ancient Life Oil, something that I do every single day. Thank you so much, Ronnie. Behave and be well.
All right. Thank you.
Ronnie McMullen, everybody. Life Change Tea and Ancient Life Oil. .com. Both of the websites are over at jimmychurchradio.com. I'm going to get out of here, get this party started. Coming up after this short break, Dr. Lisa Galarneau is going to be with us, and a little bit later on tonight, Steve Bassett is going to be here. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
What can I say about the most popular tea on the internet? And what do customers say about Life Change Tea at getthetea.com? A lot. But by federal law, we at getthetea.com cannot make claims to how this product can enhance your health. We cannot even post our testimonies without being in compliance. So how do we get past the hump? Try our products at getthetea.com and see for yourself. You can send us a testimony, but we just can't post it. Bummer. Our products are GMO-free and organic. We pride ourselves in being the best we can be, and we urge you to take charge of your health. We're 11 years strong, and many of our customers have shared their successes with friends and family. Protect your colon. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Getthetea.com. Getthetea.com.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Win big with KGRA this summer. Tickets and hotel accommodations to the biggest conferences, autographed books and DVDs, chances to win all-inclusive conference cruises, and private dinners with your favorite KGRA hosts. Click the contest tab at kgraradio.com for your chance to win big this summer. Your contact for the best alternative talk radio on the planet. kgraradio.com.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. And we've got Dr. Lisa here. You can find her, Dr. Lisa Galarneau, right there on Twitter. She's up there. This segment of Fade to Black is proudly brought to you by Life Change Tea and Ancient Life Oil. Ronnie McMullen was just on with us. Head over to the websites. It's all right there at jimmychurchradio.com. Click on the banners. Promo code FADER, Life Change Tea, get you free shipping. FADER. Dr. Lisa Galarneau is a sociocultural anthropologist, futurist, media scholar, and contact experiencer since childhood. Lisa began her career as a linguist in the U.S. Army, followed by undergraduate and graduate work at UC Berkeley and the University of Waikato in New Zealand. She spent 25 years in the tech industry working on groundbreaking and award-winning projects related to the internet, media, video games, virtual worlds, and a number of community and educational projects. In recent years, she has worked as a design researcher on projects for Microsoft, Amazon, dozens of other tech and media companies. Lisa has been in constant telepathic contact with her team of guides for the last several years and has been assisting with disclosure, exopolitics, exoconsciousness efforts using her wide range of psychic, creative, and technical talents. She is the co-founder of the Disclosure Activist, and that is disclosureactivist.org. I would like to welcome for the first time to Fade to Black, Dr. Lisa Galarneau. Dr. Lisa, good evening. How are you?
I'm great, Jimmy. Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to hear your voice, and you get the first-time guest disclaimer. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Which is this. It's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends, and where that conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends. But we're going to end as friends. There you go.
I love that. That's wonderful.
You know, it's so funny when I have a first-time guest on and I hit them with that. They're like, what? I didn't know this was coming. But, yeah, you know, and first-time guests are important on the show, and we have spent so much time with our team here to find fresh voices, the best and the brightest. And so that's why it's so important. A first-time guest, I just want them to be comfortable. You know, let's just do this, and we'll see where this starts, and we'll see where it ends. But it's all good, you know.
Yeah, that's great. I'm really honored to be talking to you and to your audience. So, sounds great. Let's go.
Well, you've got. I want to talk a little bit. We'll do your childhood in the next segment because we're going to go back and visit those subjects. But on the professional side, I want to talk about your background and your credentials, because when we are talking about things like Microsoft and Amazon and Futurist and the Army and graduate studies, that's a pretty good CV. It's a great CV, but it's also something that we don't see that often here in our community. So tell us about your background and linguist and futurist and working with these companies before we talk about what brought you here.
Sure. Well, I was born in 1969, which was in the same month, in fact, that the internet went online for the first time. It was what was called ARPANET or DARPANET. Mm-hmm. And there were 4 nodes at 4 universities. I was born in Northern California. I ended up having, access to great educational opportunities in Northern California. But I lived a fairly normal childhood, except for, some of these contact experiences I was having that, I honestly didn't take all that seriously. And, I'll say my childhood was normal on the one hand, but on the other hand, there was some abuse and stuff going on at home. And I had a need to leave that situation as soon as I possibly could. So I spent my last year of high school as an exchange student in Chile, and I actually had sort of a major UFO sighting while I was in Chile as well. So this was in 1986, 1987. And then when I came home from Chile, I graduated from high school, and almost immediately within a couple of months, I had joined the Army as a linguist, which is something that smart kids who, are joining the military, have the option to do or did at that time. Mm-hmm. And because, it was the Cold War era, the official Cold War era, I was given the option of a couple of different languages. I already spoke about 3 languages at the time. So I scored, quite well on the entrance exams and that sort of thing. And they offered me the possibility of learning Russian. So after basic training, I went to the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, which is very well known, for being a facility for people who are learning languages who are in any branch of the armed services. And the sign in front of our barracks said, "We're learning Russian, so you don't have to."
Oh, nice.
And we wore T-shirts around that said that sort of thing. But I only spent about a year and a half in the military because I ended up being injured, and they offered me the opportunity, to be discharged. And I decided at that point I was ready to, start going to college because, my kind of working class family was all about the education. So I was very focused. And in fact, my grandfather only went to school through the 2nd grade. He was from Arkansas. So it was a big thing, education in my family. So I spent a while at community college in Sacramento. I then transferred to UC Berkeley, where I had no idea what I was going to do with myself. But I started out studying linguistics, switched to Slavic languages and literatures, and was studying Soviet culture and propaganda and just all this kind of stuff related to the Soviet Union. And then the Berlin Wall fell and the Soviet Union sort of fell apart. And I decided at that point I would switch gears. And I kind of looked through the course catalog, and I was trying to figure out how, what am I going to change my major to and still graduate on time. And it turns out I had taken a ton of anthropology classes, and a lot of them were related to spirituality and religion and the geography of religion and spirituality and cosmology. And, I was just kind of trying to figure out how it all worked and how my experiences fit. So my undergraduate degree was in anthropology, and I graduated from Berkeley in '93, which was the same year the first graphical web browser came out. I don't know if you remember this, Jimmy.
I do. But I was there. I was there.
Yeah, so Netscape and all of that. And we went from, our kind of green screen, text-based internet, the pre-graphical internet, which was very interesting, and useful at the time. But, the graphical internet, I just thought that was the best thing ever. And I have kind of a funny story. I don't know if this happened to you, but I remember getting on the graphical web very early, right after that first browser came out. And I went looking for websites, and I swear I could only find 20 or 30 websites. I spent several hours finding every website I could. And I remember just thinking to myself, oh, we need more internet. So that's kind of, set the stage for everything I've done ever since. So I've done a whole variety of things. I started out kind of doing graphic design and desktop publishing and technical support. And I worked in a variety of sort of, hardcore back-end technical jobs. I was working for a systems integrator who were resellers for Sun Microsystems equipment and Netscape equipment, if you know any of these names, Unix-based systems, essentially. And I had several of these very technical jobs. And then around about the mid-90s to the late 90s, I started getting involved with more kind of creative and interactive and marketing agencies who were doing kind of exciting work that was combining like the best of graphic design and back-end design and different kinds of things. So I kind of switched to what I would call the front end. And now my specialty is what we call user experience design, which is basically what it sounds like. But what researchers in this area do is they're embedded with software development teams. And we're part of the process of kind of conceiving and, beginning projects and kind of designing and building out projects. And then we're in the process throughout as the software is being developed so that we can then, test it with audiences to see if we're doing the right thing. It's a lot like audience research in, the movie industry.
Yeah, it's got to be very, very similar. And you've got to be able to get that interaction back for the user experience and the user interface, because you could spend a lot of development time on something that just nobody's going to care about or lose interest in or not be attracted to or get bored with or. Yeah, you've got to go through that. There's no
test early and often.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Because that is exactly what happens, and it's a small investment to make, and it can have a really great payoff. The reason I personally enjoy doing this work so much is that I spent a lot of time working on projects that I worked for TowerRecords.com for a while before Tower went belly up, and I was finding it really difficult to get the other executives that I was working with to kind of do the right thing by the user. And I found out that, coming to them with tangible evidence about what users were experiencing, what their problems were, and what they were trying to do was the best way for me to have an impact. So I find it's actually quite strategic work, even though it might not seem so. And it's very satisfying. I'm an advocate for the user it's called voice of the customer research. So I'm an advocate for end users, and the whole time my job is to say, this works great, this doesn't work great. We can do better, let's do better. So so that should give you an idea of the kind of work that I mostly do. But I also do other kinds of research. I do insights research. I did a lot of work in the cloud computing space, which I used to call the big database in the sky. And I've done a lot of work in video games and virtual worlds. My doctorate was all video game related. I'm a gamer going back to probably age 11 with Pong. So I really got bit by, the kind of gamer bug. And I was extremely interested because my master's degree is in education, and I was very interested in online learning and this kind of thing. And I was looking for really great examples of online learning and couldn't really find them. And then I was looking around me at all of these game spaces that people were playing in, and I was thinking to myself, wow, people never read a manual. They just somehow learn the mechanics of these very complicated games just from each other.
That's right.
So I decided that I would study that for my dissertation, and I did this through the University of Waikato in New Zealand. And I studied what I called spontaneous communities of learning. So it's how people kind of get together in sort of, a swarm intelligence kind of way in order to achieve something. And in this case, it was, to achieve entertainment goals. The game that I studied for a very long time was called City of Heroes. So we were all superheroes, and we'd, get together in teams, and we'd find people to work with, and we'd go out and we'd fight crime and, fight bad guys and, and we would do this, sometimes, for hours at a time. So it's just fascinating to me the way people can come together on the internet and figure out ways to be really productive. We call them, in kind of learning sciences circles, we call these things communities of practice or communities of learning.
Yeah, I went through the whole gaming thing. Still do. I've got a PS4, but I certainly early on, when things started to take off, Tomb Raider, Diablo 2.
Oh, I played a lot of Diablo.
Yeah. Diablo 2. I played that game to finish probably a dozen times. But
it was a great game.
That was a great
very
game.
Different at the time. Yeah.
And Command and Conquer and
all of those. So those are real-time strategy games. I love games like that too.
And the total immersive way that Tomb Raider approached that world. Also, I really got into Myst and Uru. Oh man.
You liked the groundbreaking games. Those games were all groundbreaking at the time.
Completely groundbreaking. And to this day, I mean, Uru and Myst, they still are part of my dreamscape. I can go right there. But this is where
I know what you mean. When you play these games so much, and then you're dreaming about the games, and then you're waking up with a new solution to something you're trying to solve.
Oh, you should have ridden in one of my cars when I'm driving the streets of LA after playing Gran Turismo for 8 hours. But this is where before we hit the top of the hour. This is something else that is interesting for you in your career, in that quantum computing, parallel worlds, and what is going on in that aspect with the qubits, and these CEOs and heads of corporations up there in Silicon Valley, over the last couple of years have started to talk about this binary world, the simulated universe, the possibility of us living in a simulation, and still that hasn't stopped. Did you get involved in any of that chatter in your work environments?
Well, some of that I can't tell you, Jimmy.
That's why you're on the show.
But I will tell you that there is some very interesting work going on that's at the kind of intersection of what I might call consciousness science, and the work that I do with the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial and Extraordinary Encounters. They're also called FREE. Which was founded by Dr. Edgar Mitchell, of course, who also founded the Institute for Noetic Sciences, who are a consciousness research organization, a scientific organization like FREE. And it turns out that there are organizations like Google who are very interested in these kind of new interfaces. If you think about augmented reality and virtual reality, and this actually goes back a little bit of time, because Deepak Chopra was made a couple of games for the Kinect, the Microsoft's Xbox Kinect, when it first came out, that were relying on kind of neurofeedback principles. And so they're looking at a lot of new kind of interfaces. There's one thing that just came out recently, that there's a company that's developed something that's an interface for your other devices, but where you don't have to speak a command. You can just say the command in your head. Mm-hmm. And it will activate the device. So, I know about some of the projects like that a little bit more, from a technology perspective. But I've certainly done a lot of research and have a fairly, I'd call it a general understanding, but a conceptual understanding of, this idea of the multiverse and multidimensionality and kind of where we fit in all of that. And I tend to think about all of these things like consciousness. Consciousness to me is the cosmic internet, and we are all nodes on the, the internet, or, it's kind of like, the fact that I talk, to my team of guides, using consciousness as a vehicle, everyone is capable of doing this. And, so my metaphor is usually, well, it's like people who had ham radios in the day. And, somebody with a ham radio would say, oh my God, I started talking to someone in Timbuktu and it was so great. And everybody's like, what? How is that possible? But dude's got a radio and he's talking to all sorts of people. Or my grandfather had a CB in his pickup truck and we used to talk to all sorts of people. So, it's very much that same, kind of paradigm. And, to speak to your point, when we think about it from a digital perspective, rather than an analog perspective, and we think about everything being digital, and therefore, this is just one big virtual world. And there are people who are developers and programmers and producers and artists and all kinds of people who work on our project, this virtual world. And they're the people who are, on what we would call the other side of the veil. But there are a lot of people, in contact, with these beings in one way or another. And, I just happen to be one of them.
Now, what I find interesting, we've got a few minutes before the break. I can understand building a neural interface, which I know that DARPA and Sandia have already completed. That's fine. I know that technology exists. And downloading our memories and thoughts, things that are stored onto a drive, is possible. I totally get that. But what about the soul that makes us us? Is that transferable to live in the virtual world?
Oh, yes. So we're essentially jacked into a reality, just like people are in the Matrix or in, Avatar, right? So they kind of jack into that reality. And it's the soul is the being that's jacked into this reality, and the interface is the human body and the human brain. But the mind is a combination of things that are produced via the human brain and, via the greater mind. And because consciousness is one great field, and because we're all interconnected, I'd really encourage your listeners who are interested in this to look up some talks by, say, Rupert Sheldrake has done a lot of talks about the evidence for telepathy, and he talks a lot about telepathy in insects and animals and behaviors that are synchronized behaviors. I wrote investigated a lot of that stuff when I was working on my doctoral work, because I was very interested in principles of self-organization and emergence, so the emergence of an intelligence that's greater than the sum of its parts. You can have these hive mind configurations or these swarm intelligences that exhibit those behaviors you might call like it's the wisdom of crowds. So I was really interested in kind of a lot of those ideas. And, I think the first hurdle a lot of people need to get over, because there's this kind of scientific truth embargo about, that's all about establishment science. And a lot of this fringe stuff is just kind of rejected without people even really knowing the evidence. So I find, that getting people to wrap their heads around the idea that, no, telepathy and ESP, weren't debunked with Uri Geller and the 1970s, which is where a lot of people's heads are at, people who aren't like listening to your show on a regular basis. So there's a lot of there are a lot of really fascinating developments with a lot of researchers who are all over the world, some who haven't had an opportunity to publish their research yet. But are some amazing beings, doing some amazing things. So there's a guy who can cite 22,000 numbers of pi, and he can just keep reciting numbers of pi like endlessly. And the way he apparently does it, he's what you might call an autistic savant, and he has synesthesia. So he apparently receives these different colors in a pattern, and the colors each represent a different number. So he knows, for instance, 1 is red and 2 is yellow and 3 is green, kind of thing. And he just gets kind of a movie or a parade of these colors, and he just rattles off the numbers. So he's getting that from, a team of people that he's talking to via his, not people on Earth, I mean extra dimensional people.
Right. I've seen the documentary. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, what people are doing with their minds right now is just off the charts. And what some of these kids and young people are doing, and they've grown up digital, they've grown up with the internet, they don't perceive any of the limitations that you and I might have, growing up in the 70s and 80s. I had my first computer at 15, but it wasn't on the internet. So, when people have neuroplastic minds and when they grow up with these digital technologies, it's literally a quantum leap, beyond what a lot of other people might be experiencing, which is exciting for humanity. And, I'm really happy about it. We can solve our intractable problems, and then we've got, generations of people, who are being born and who are growing up, who are world changers and, game changers, as your radio network is called.
That's a great segue for us to take a break right here. Our guest tonight, Dr. Lisa Galarneau. And when we come back, we're going to jump into her work in the disclosure movement. We're going to do all of that tonight. I'll be right back. Stay with us after this short break. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. More with Dr. Lisa Galarneau right after this short break. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Does your basement or crawl space have a damp, musty smell? Well, watch out! That's a sign of too much moisture and not enough ventilation. And that can mean increased mold growth and the buildup of harmful toxins and gases. Don't bother with a dehumidifier. It just circulates the same unhealthy air. Now there's a better way to remove these dangers and odors. It's with the computerized Wave Moisture Control Unit that reduces moisture and expels pollutants.
We replaced our old dehumidifier with the Wave unit, and in only 3 weeks, our basement is dry and the musty smell is gone.
Wave units require no maintenance, no buckets of water or filters, and costs only pennies a day to run. Breathe better, live healthier with an affordable, no-maintenance Wave unit. Call 888-717-WAVE, 888-717-WAVE, or visit dryhealthyhome.com. Dryhealthyhome.com.
Ride the wave. Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. Yes. We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
Ancient Life Oil. Life-changing. The real oil. CBD is truly ancient life oil from the source. This oil has no psychoactive effect and is also legal in all 50 states. When you're healthy, you're happy. The truth about this wonderful plant is that it wants to give back to mankind life, longevity, and happiness. Ancient Life Oil are golden grade, all organic, non-GMO, and infused with high-quality liquid coconut oil. It's simple. Just go to ancientlifeoil.com today. That's ancientlifeoil.com. The best, purest, organic, and non-GMO CBD in the world. Go Beckley Tappy. The statements made regarding these products have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Please consult your healthcare professional about potential interactions or other possible complications before using any product.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Dr. Lisa Galarneau. We're talking about the disclosure movement, and this segment of Fade to Black is proudly brought to you by River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. And right now, they have a 20% discount on all of their offerings. Use the promo code Coffee Break. 2 words, Coffee Break. Just go to rivermooncoffee.com. Now, Dr. Lisa, that's funny. I get to say Dr. Lisa. That's actually, it's pretty cool.
I kind of like Dr. Lisa. It's easy.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Oh, your last name is great, but Dr. Lisa's got a zing to it. The disclosure with your career and your background, something motivated you into our community and to start moving forward with the disclosure movement. What caused that?
Well, honestly, that's been mainly my team of guides, and this has really happened in the last 10 years or so. So, I was the kind of person, you might not believe this, but I actually tend to be rather skeptical about things. And I was skeptical about my own experiences as well. I should tell you that when I was 6, I had a couple of glow-in-the-dark beings show up in the bedroom in the middle of the night. And this was after a period of time when I had been seeing a lot of energy forms and different kinds of things. And so, that was an inexplicable experience that I've kind of known about my whole life. And my parents were sort of into sci-fi and this kind of thing, and took me to my first UFO conference when I was probably about 9 or 10. And, I was raised on Star Trek, and Star Trek, just had a profound effect on me. And, there was this kind of vision of a future that was, there were a lot of problems and a lot of bad guys, but the principles were utopian, and it was all about kind of, equality and fairness. And, all of those Star Trek people were good guys. And there was Spock, and I loved Spock, and he was so logical and rational and all of this. And so, that had a kind of a profound effect on me as well, just from a personal paradigm perspective. So I remember, for instance, being in the backseat of the car at one point when I was, maybe 9 or 10 years old, and the news was on the radio. And at one point, they start talking about illegal aliens. And I nearly hit the roof. And I said something like, "Oh my God, they're here," because I just took it for granted that there was, other life out there, and other life might, come and find us at some point. I was watching Nimoy's In Search Of, I just had a lot of kind of context, but I wouldn't have called it like a serious habit or anything like that. What I ended up getting quite into, was just understanding, various religions and spiritual practices and cosmological myths. And I did a lot of this, at Berkeley in anthropology, a lot of kind of shamanic and religious studies kind of stuff. And what I started to discover is that there are so many cosmological myths in so many places that are kind of disconnected from one another, that talk about star beings and star people. And, we know if you look at, the record of humanity, that we suddenly became very intelligent very quickly, round about the time of, Mesopotamia and ancient Sumer, the stuff that people like Zecharia Sitchin, wrote about. And I also had an opportunity, when I was living in Chile, I actually had access to some books. And one of the books was a book called Was Jesus Christ a Cosmonaut? And I went to Christian schools as a kid. So, I kind of understood that point of view. And just this whole idea, oh my God, what if all of these spiritual beings from the Bible were actually just extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional beings, and so that was another big paradigm shift for me. And so, I've just kind of continued to do my thing, for a long time. But about 10 years ago, I started getting in serious contact with my team, while practicing transcendental, meditation and that sort of thing. And they were the ones, honestly, who kind of pushed me to, explore, who else is talking to ET. And once I kind of went down that rabbit hole, I found, all of the channeled messages, and there are tens of thousands of them at this point, going back, quite far. a lot of them are beings, ascended beings or extraterrestrial beings associated with what they call the Galactic Federation of Light. And I became, just very interested in all of that content. And I wasn't sure I believed that people were actually talking to ET that much. But I found the messages to be really useful from a spiritual perspective. And I was kind of going through a hard time in my life, and I found them, extremely comforting. So, fast forward a little bit, and Steve Bassett and I actually got connected on the website called Quora, because I was running into a lot of people, which is kind of a question and answer site. I was running into so many people, with scientific and technical backgrounds who were just kind of regurgitating the same dogma, what I would call, what Rupert Sheldrake has called the science delusion, which I think is a little harsh because, I'm a fan of science, obviously. But there are times, when science gets a little too wedded and invested in the hard scientific method, which basically says that if you can't control an experiment and make an experiment happen, then you're not able to prove anything. So when you have all of these people who will still say, well, there's no proof or evidence, that we have extraterrestrial visitors or even that there's advanced extraterrestrial life, this tends to be the kind of scientific challenge that they're demanding, when in fact most of the evidence that we're getting is either through people's subjective experience or through science, which it has actually been very well documented by organizations like MUFON and the National UFO Reporting Center. Cheryl Costa and Linda Miller Costa have actually just put out a book last year that's called the UFO Sightings Desk Reference, where they've compiled all of the sightings they could find in the U.S. between 2001 and 2015. And that's been an amazing, piece of work and very insightful. And as well, I watched the citizen hearing on disclosure. I know you're having Steve Bassett on in the next segment. And that work was just incredibly groundbreaking because he pulled together 40, I think it was, eyewitnesses who were very high-ranking and credible people in the military, in aeronautics, airline pilots, astronauts, just all sorts of people. So, that was just an incredible piece of work that was really inspiring. And then in early 2017, Russell Kalka and I got together and formed the Disclosure Activists because we wanted to create a group that would help connect the dots between all of these various communities. I kind of think of disclosure, like big D disclosure, like super big D disclosure, as being like a jigsaw puzzle, and we all have pieces of it, and we have different parts of the jigsaw puzzle that we're starting to put together, and we can kind of start to see what the picture is, but not exactly.
Where do you think? Let me jump in real quick. Where do you think? And I know that we all have a different definition of disclosure. There is a very personal connect for everybody in this community, what brought them here, and disclosure means different things to everybody, and I get that part, but where do you think it is going to come from? Is it going to come out of Washington, D.C.? Is it going to be an anonymous hack download of documents? Is it going to be an Independence Day type of mass event over a city? How do you see it happening?
Well, from what I understand, it's going to be a number of different things. From what I understand, the body on planet Earth that they are currently in talks with, I guess you could say, have been negotiating with, because from their point of view, this is an intervention effort, a humanitarian intervention effort. And they plan to operate very much like the Red Cross would operate. And yeah, they've been on their way now for, well over a decade, trying to get here, a bunch of these advanced races, because we're stuck in a corner of 3D, 4D reality, at the end of, the Milky Way, you know, and if you look at the spiral galaxy that is the Milky Way, we're on one of the outside arms and we're kind of pointed in the wrong direction. So it's taken them quite a while to get here, but yeah, they plan to, you know, this whole effort, this whole time, you know, working with people like me and all of the other work they've done with other experiencers and contactees of all sorts. And it's estimated that probably 1 in 10 people have had some sort of UFO sighting worldwide.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
A lot of people.
Well, okay. So what you are suggesting here is that there is a conversation that is going on in front of some type of ET exposure?
The UN has an outer space agency that was created in 2010.
Right.
And I've been told that the outer space agency is involved. But there are obviously a lot of bodies involved. And I mean both, you know, individual bodies, you know, and other organizations because, you know, we're basically, you know, trying to get to open contact. And, you know, obviously there's been a quarantine period and, you know, kind of all the things you would expect. The teams, you know, that many of the exoconscious or experiencer types are working on their language skills. They're trying to understand our culture. They're trying to understand, you know, the state of our science, of our technology, and all sorts of things because they're trying to figure out how they can help best. And they apparently, you know, were having a lot of trouble with this to begin with. But as they started handing over more scientific knowledge and doing things like solving mathematical proofs that we haven't been able to solve for decades, you know, and apparently the Earth-based delegations became a lot more receptive because we can't even imagine the kind of technology progress that this is going to allow for us and the sorts of problems we're going to be able to solve with technology. You know, I'm ultimately a technophile. I do believe we need to be conscious and thoughtful about the technology that we create and how we use it and need to respond when there are unintended consequences. But fundamentally, I believe technology will save us.
Are we ready for it?
Well, that's what this whole effort has been about. And here's how I would explain it to you. Even though I might talk about these beings being ET, if you go out and you look at the data, it turns out that up to 28% of people worldwide will say that they've heard voices inside their head at some point or another, voices that they're not sure who it is, you know, or they think it's God, or they think it's Jesus, or aliens, or they think it's angels, or they think it's fairies, or you know, in Buddhist countries they might think something else. In Hindu countries they might think something else, because the whole effort has been about raising consciousness, raising vibration, trying to get people thinking more positively, helping people heal from trauma. I'm a trauma survivor myself, so a lot of the work that my team does with me is you basically talk therapy, you know, 24/7. Whatever problems I'm having, they're there. They're very sympathetic. They're trying to help me solve my problems. You know, so it's been a really positive experience for me. And, you know, just if you don't mind, if I circle back to FREE again, the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation, the data from their study of experiencers, which includes about 4,000 experiencers, I think, at this point, 85% of the experiencers talk about those experiences being extremely positive and things that they want to continue to experience. So even though a lot of different people in our world have different ways of talking about it, a lot of people are having the same kind of experience. Does that make sense to you? You know, but there's a huge number of people who would say it's Jesus they're talking to. And, you know, that might be true because, you know, there's something called a Christ consciousness, which is a whole bunch of beings who are aligned with kind of that message and that way of being. But, you know, the way I kind of parse it all, because it can be so confusing, is, you know, I look for things that are positive, you know, things that I can kind of see the light in for the most part. when I'm looking for, spiritual content or disclosure related content that I can kind of relate to. And there are a lot of people, we have several advisors as part of the disclosure activists. Grant Cameron is one, Victor Vigiani is another, Cheryl Costa is one, and, a bunch of people who are more involved in the exoconscious side of things. So Dr. Rebecca Hardcastle-Wright, Giorgio Piacenza, various people like that. So we've been kind of trying to connect these dots and kind of unify various forces within the movement so that we can be more effective and so that audiences can understand better, what is this really all about? What is this thing? Do we need to be scared, or can we be excited, or, what have you? So my message is really that this could be the most positive thing that's ever happened, to humanity. And it's certainly needed at this point. And yeah, I think we can handle it because we have a lot of people, 50% of the people on this planet are under the age of 25 and they've grown up digital. So I think we can handle it.
Yeah, I think you're right on that part. But there is, when we look at things like Christianity or the Muslim side of things and world religions, how that we're talking about, 3 billion people right there on this planet, right? In 2 or 3 religions that may or may not react in a positive way, not necessarily in a negative way, but certainly their beliefs and their very being, their lives will come crashing down on them. What would result from that? Or the other side of it is 3 billion of those out there might just go, you know what? So what? I knew it. Right.
Well, this is the thing, Jimmy, is the Vatican has for years been talking about our extraterrestrial brothers.
Certainly have.
And
yes.
So has the Dalai Lama. And, I'm not deeply familiar, with what, say, Muslim clerics talk about. But, Allah is the Judeo-Christian God. I mean, it's the same God, and this is very well established. And in Islam as well, they consider Jesus Christ to be a prophet. And, it's all kind of copacetic and coexistence oriented, when you kind of start digging under the covers. So I think the religions will be fine. I think they will all come out and say, oh, yes, all God's children. It's wonderful.
Well, my thought is as polluted as this is. Wouldn't it just be an interesting twist on things if we did have the famous flying saucer on the White House lawn or on the 405 freeway here in Los Angeles, right? And it comes down and lands. And the stair steps come down, and we see the feet, then we see the legs, and then boom, he looks like Jesus, right? And I don't know, none of us do, but wouldn't that just be interesting? And I'm okay with that, actually. It's kind of a weird thought, but you just never know. We could all be wrong.
Yeah, well, I like to say that aliens are people too, because that's kind of my experience, and they call themselves beings all the time. And I tend to refer to them as people, and, they seem like people to me. And we will find that most of them look very much like us. And the reason for that, of course, is that if you look at humanity as a species, Homo sapiens, or even some of the other hominids that there have been over time, there's a qualitative difference in order of magnitude difference between, say, us and most of the animal species on our world. I mean, in terms of how we use language, in terms of how we use tools, in terms of the complex civilizations we build, very, very different from most animal species. So, it's really important, to kind of keep in mind that, and if you think about it, it's all very logical. Like, how would advanced civilizations go about seeding life on a planet and developing, again, remember, this is a big virtual world, so how do they develop our world? How do they develop the animal species on our world, the plant species, etc.? And, they are, much more advanced than a lot of us are, technologically. So it might seem very strange. But I think the big aha for everybody is going to be, oh my God, they're not little green men. They're not little gray aliens. These beings who are here to help us are basically just like us. And at some point, some people might have called them creator gods. They like to call themselves with me master geneticists. They don't like to be called creator gods, but these some of these races, have been involved in the seeding of our planet and the seeding of other planets. And even though they like to talk in Star Trek about the Prime Directive and all of this, that's actually not the way they tend to approach things, because they've said that civilizations need mentorship, they need guidance. There are certain self-destructive tendencies that tend to kick in if there isn't the right kind of guidance, and a spiritual journey, if you will, that a civilization is on. And that's why so much of the preparation has been about helping people on their spiritual journeys and becoming more conscious and becoming more aware and woke and all of this kind of stuff.
Well, now we have the mass media that has been covering the UFO subject pretty aggressively since December. We don't need to.
That's been amazing to see. Yeah,
right.
And very cool. So Steve Bassett deserves a lot of credit for that. He made a lot of breakthroughs with the media. If you go look at Paradigm Research Group and look at the media coverage that he was able to get with Paradigm Research Group, with everything they did, the citizen hearing on disclosure, and many subsequent events as well. That's been a real breakthrough. And yeah, we're seeing stuff now. Tom DeLonge also gets a lot of credit. He's a bit controversial because I think a lot of people don't understand that although he wasn't like a serious UFO investigator, he was a hobbyist UFO investigator for a long time, and he decided to use his platform and actually gave up Blink-182, formed this new band, Angels and Airwaves, and has been, hard at work on many of the same consciousness-related activities the rest of us are on. So, and as a pop culture icon, has a platform and an audience that he was able to use to get this information out of the echo chamber, and had the clout to get the DoD to cooperate with him, and start to put this information out there, which people like Grant Cameron have been talking about for years now, that this is the plan. There's definitely a plan for this to happen. So that formal disclosure has started to happen. But, I think for us, the Holy Grail is, a major world government, having the press conference and saying, yep, they've been here. We haven't told you this whole time because, we've been vetting them and we haven't been sure. And yeah, there was some terrible stuff that happened, but that's not these people. And, so there's going to be an extended, explanation process, I guess you could say. And then there's going to be the question that everyone's going to ask, well, what does this mean for humanity? And, my favorite quote is from a computer scientist whose name is Alan Kay, who says, the best way to predict the future is to invent it. And my team constantly says this to me: the best way to predict the future is to invent it. So, we're in the process of inventing a future that works for everybody. And, that's what I myself am deeply passionate about. And we need to get rid of war and violence and scarcity thinking and just this terrible, terrible stuff that's sucking the life out of our civilization, and, move on to a paradigm that's about abundance and equality and justice and fairness and everybody getting a fair shake, and seeing, humanity flower in, the way we all know we can. We just kind of need the opportunity, and we kind of need the adults to show up on the playground and say, okay, hey, you over there, you sit down, you do this.
Well, there's that part of it, and I've only got 2 minutes left, so it'll be a quick question with a quick answer, which is, this community gets that. We totally understand it. But what about you in your job, walking down the halls of, say, Microsoft or Amazon, talking about disclosure and UFOs? Are we at that point? Do you feel comfortable in doing that, or do you do it?
No, I've been in hiding, and I was also doing work with Anonymous, so I have a lot of kind of activism and different work that I kind of keep on the down low. But I've become a lot more open in the last year or two, because it's definitely time now for us to be having these conversations. But no, you've got to keep politics, religion, sex, and aliens out of business still. I'm sorry.
You're not going to want to miss tomorrow night's show. I've got Barrett Brown on the show.
Oh.
Yeah, tomorrow night Barrett Brown's on. I've had Greg Hausch on the show. I've had quite a few of the key players from Anonymous here. You should listen to the show tomorrow. I will,
definitely. I'm an unmasked Anon. I've been working with Anonymous for 5 or 6 years or so, and I kind of I'm really interested in movements in general, and I also do work with the resistance movement. So I do a whole bunch of different things. I like this concept of hacktivism.
Have you been there?
Although I call myself a culture hacker.
Right.
So I don't actually do any illegal hacking, but I'm happy to try and change people's minds. And so,
have you been to any of the conferences like Hope in New York?
I have not.
Oh,
no.
You've got to go to Hope.
Oh, okay.
You've got to go to Hope. Hope is absolutely amazing. So if you ever get a chance, it's at the Roosevelt Hotel there in Manhattan. We went a couple of years ago. And that was one of, that's a bucket list thing. So, Dr. Lisa, thank you so much. And I want to let everybody know the website is disclosureactivists.org. The links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. And I want to invite you back onto the show where we can do a full show on tech and futurism and, of course, talk about UFOs and your experiences, too, as well. Thank you so much.
I'd love that, Jimmy. Thank you so much. You have a great night.
Great conversation. Thank you, Dr. Lisa. Dr. Lisa Galarneau, right there, the Disclosure Activists, thedisclosureactivist.org. Okay, I'm going to take a little break, and I'll be right back with Steve Bassett. You stay right there. This is Fade to Black.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires. This year we've experienced more than our fair share. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and last month I decided to make sure my family does not have to worry about food should we get caught in a real emergency situation. Introducing Numana, a healthy, storable product that tastes so good that you'll want to eat it every day instead of just during those times of duress. All Numana products have a 25-year shelf life, are MSG and GMO-free, no preservatives, and are made in America. With the Numana pack in your home, you'll be able to sleep at night knowing that you've protected your family. Not only have I tasted and tested, I own it. Now you can too. Just click on the Numana banner on jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code Jimmy when you order. In addition to a discount, we'll send you an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt. Seriously. Go Beckley Tappy.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
Hi folks, what can I say without making claims? CBD is truly the buzzword for health. What does it do? Government institutions will not allow me to say what this wonderful oil does for us. But I can say it's non-GMO and organic. I can say it's 0.003 THC, which in plain English means you won't get high. There are those that want to squash your freedom to buy natural products. Fight back with your purchase power. In the end, it is you that takes care of your health. Go to ancientlifeoil.com. One more time, ancientlifeoil.com.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. You can follow Steve at Steve Bassett right there, Paradigm Research Group. And this segment of Fade to Black is proudly brought to you by Numana Food Storage, emergency food storage for you and your family. Click on the banner over at jimmychurchradio.com. Use the promo code Jimmy. Every order over $100 gets you an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt. And now it's about Steve Bassett. He is the executive director of the Paradigm Research Group, founded back in 1996 to end the government-imposed embargo on truth behind the so-called UFO phenomenon. Now, check this out. He has given over 1,000 radio and television interviews. Tonight will mark 1,002, and I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, the one and only Steve Bassett. Steve, good evening.
Hi, Jimmy. It's good to be with you again.
It's absolutely good to hear your voice, my friend. And now, Fade to Black t-shirt. I remember like 5 years ago, I threw you one and you looked at it and you said, I'm too old to wear this, and you threw it back. You remember that?
I'm too old to wear a lot of things, Jimmy.
I'll never forget that. Well, I was picturing you wearing the t-shirt and I went, I'm going to go with Steve on this. I'll take it back. One day I'm going to get a picture of you wearing a Fade to Black t-shirt and the world will shift on its axis.
It could happen.
It could happen. I firmly believe that. Now, Steve, the disclosure movement, you are the disclosure OG. And before you ask me what OG means, that means you're too old. But you are indeed that for our community. That's, we look up to you not only for your words, but for your effort too as well. Where do you think we are today after, over 20 years doing this activism? Steve, where are we today?
We're in a very complicated place. I've lived through a lot of complicated times from the standpoint of the United States. The world gets more complicated every year, regardless of where you are on the planet. But I was born just after the war. The Korean War was going on in my first years. The Vietnam War really got going just as I left for college. After college, and it wasn't long before the Watergate scandal broke. And then other scandals broke, the Church Commission, then the scandals at the Reagan administration, and then we had the Clinton scandals, and on, a lot of chaos. This is bigger than any of that. So that's complicated. And then the other thing is that the advocacy movement has pushed or has helped to bring the truth embargo up to the edge. So it's right there. It could very easily end. It's right near the finish line, but it's going to be hard to push it over. So that's in the works. And so this is extremely difficult to navigate. And if you listen to people on news shows talking about their plans or election campaigns or anything that involves future planning, you sense their befuddlement. They're just not sure what to do. They're confused. They've gone down the rabbit hole, and they're down there eating cake and getting larger and drinking something and getting smaller, and there's a red queen and white rabbits running around. It's really very bizarre. Now, this is not a good thing, particularly when you've got, I don't know how many, 15,000, 10,000 nuclear weapons, many of which are on launch alert, and you've got a world that's constantly in one form of instability or another. Not good. So that's what we're at. Now, the fact is that when you have times of chaos, sometimes extraordinary things will happen because the normal routines are disrupted.
Right.
Certain barriers are dropped. So it wouldn't surprise me if that actually contributed to the embargo finally ending. But the ending of the truth embargo is a non-trivial thing, as you know, Jimmy. It's not going to be easy right up until the day it happens. There are just so many conflicting views on it and internal dissent within our own government. But because more nations have already done some things which show that they're leaning in that way, that kind of creates a disclosure race in a sense where you've got any number of nations looking at each other wondering who would go first, who's going to be first, like who's going to be first on the moon, who's going to be first in space, first on Mars, who's going to be the first nation to announce the ET presence. So I'm optimistic, but I can't get too optimistic because it's so hard to project what the hell's going to happen 2 weeks from now.
Hey, you've probably gone through different emotional tidal waves over the years where things were right there, right? You're staring at it, and then nothing happens. So are you kind of in that mindset right now too as well? I kind of hear that tone in your voice where, well, I think we all can feel it, right? We all know something's about to break.
People, believe me, most of my emotional tidal waves were before I got into this work. Getting into this work was the solution to my emotional tidal waves. But, yeah, one thing that's happening, which is notable, but I think you'd have to be involved in this deeply to really pick up on it, but you probably picked up on it too, and that is that, of course, this is what I wanted all along, is that more and more people, when they think about this issue, are thinking disclosure as opposed to UFOs. That's a significant change. UFOs is just those unidentified objects, which is the phrase that has been the touchstone for all of this for most of the last 7 decades. You can't really go anywhere. If you're talking about identified flying objects, IFOs, that would be something better. And that's what they are, at least the ones we care about.
Right.
Disclosure is another matter. Disclosure is not just about something in the sky. Disclosure is about the imminent announcement, and people are thinking that way. Just thinking that way means that they are now in a highly expectant state, and they're getting excited. It's hard to get excited about another UFO sighting. It's millions.
Yeah, I know. I kind of get excited about them, at least when it happens to me. But it
happens to you. Yeah.
Right. But you know what I do find interesting is that I can confidently say, and others will say, I don't need disclosure. I've seen what I've seen. I've experienced what I've experienced. I've seen the evidence. I don't need it. And then there's the rest of the community that absolutely disclosure to them means one thing. The head of a state, the head of the United States, whatever, steps up to the platform and says, okay, on live TV, here we go. And they won't accept anything but that, will they?
Well, the activist movement has conveniently defined it as that. Remember, we're talking about capital D disclosure.
Right.
That's what it is. So if you want to talk about capital D disclosure, there's not several versions of it. There's only one version of it. And if you say, I don't need capital D disclosure, I already know, that is perfectly legitimate statement. I guess you could say I'm the same way. It's not about whether you need it. It's the country that needs it.
Right.
The entire nation needs it. Don't think about individuals. Every individual has their own view. Some will be astounded. Some will care less. It's the nation that needs it, because for a number of reasons. One, it's undermined trust in government substantially. It's helped to create a huge, vast national security state, bigger than it needs to be, and blacker than it needs to be, or darker, more classified than it needs to be. The research into it is stymied, except in the deepest classified programs. There's nothing going on in colleges, universities. It's not taught anywhere in college, universities. We've got huge numbers of contactees still in the closet. They can't come out because the truth embargo is essentially based on the fact that there really isn't anything there. What's your problem? There's technology that may very well be a huge benefit to the nation and the human race in general. That's not going to be available, because to bring that out would end the truth embargo. So it's sequestered, I guess you could say. That's just a short list of all the things that can't happen because formal disclosure has not yet taken place. It is like opening a door. It's like there are people that there's a door there, and on the other side is the post-disclosure world. But there's people that already know that on the other side of that door is a formal understanding of the extraterrestrials. But since they already know there's extraterrestrials here, they don't feel they need to open the door. I get that. The door has to open in order for the United States and ultimately human civilization to go forward. Right now, around the world, you have a lot of substantial number of high-end leaders and or groups, mostly fanatical, that are trying to take the human race backwards. Putin is trying to take Russia back to 1975. We've got some people in Washington trying to take the country back to 1960. Others back to 1920. We've got radical religious groups in the Middle East want to take us all back to about 11th century.
Mm-hmm.
This is not the direction we want to go. We want to go into the future. We want to prepare for and advance into the future as a global civilization.
Is there a softball, Steve? Is there an underarm pitch that Washington could do that would be a softer blow? And is that actually what is going on now, as opposed to the hardcore door opening and forcing people through it? Is there a slow pitch?
Well, there is in fact, a disclosure process that's been underway for a long time. It has fits and starts, and there's different participants over the years. And that is leading up to the big disclosure, the big D. But the small D has been going on. And you could call it a slow pitch, or you could just say, well, we haven't got big D disclosure, but we can continue to do small D. So when other governments release UFO files proactively to the internet, small d. If the CIA releases 13 million previously declassified files but not generally available, they did it just before the inauguration in 2017, that's small d disclosure. So that is happening without question. And in the past, there have been some strong times, but they were truncated by historical events. And we just had that happen again. So we had two. And this is the basis of a 3-hour presentation that I've now developed over 5 months. And I've never been able to give the whole 3 hours, but I've got a couple of 2-hour versions out there in the YouTube world that essentially tries to explain the political process and story from 93 to 2017. And what it comes down to, in the fewest words, is there are two major political stories that finally essentially intersected in 2016. One of them was the historical connection, wasn't asked for, it just happened, between the Clinton dynasty, the Clinton political team, beginning right in the first term of Bill Clinton, and the ET issue, which has followed them down ever since, 25 years. Though they have stayed away from it and they not talked about it, but they have occasionally talked about it. That was mostly Podesta. They were essentially dropping breadcrumbs over the years because they had a plan. And that plan was that Hillary Clinton, First Lady, to Bill during the Rockefeller Initiative was going to get the presidency and disclose. She was going to take the legacy that her husband was denied, just like Carter was denied. Stonewalled, run around. Some silly report was put out by the Air Force, ultimately, which is embarrassing to everybody concerned. And of course, they were attacked in the usual ways, probably more excessively than some, impeached. They had a tough 8 years, and they were not happy. They were mad as hell. And the plan was she was going to eventually get that legacy. When it would happen was uncertain. And that had been going on for 25 years as we approached the election of 2016. And since 2001, Grant Cameron had put up a great deal of information on his presidential UFO site, which is a narrative. He put up the narrative and kept adding to it. But I, was the activist, began to shove that narrative under the nose of journalists and anyone that I thought was relevant for the next 15 years. And only the truth embargo prevented it becoming a major story. And since none of the Clinton people would talk about it, they gone silent, except for Podesta. They were able to essentially continue on into the future without having to speak to that issue. That is right up until the point she runs for the presidency the second time. That's the first political initiative. The second one, which may end up being even more important, gets put together in 2015. And that political initiative emerges out of the Department of Defense and the CIA, essentially the military intelligence complex. And that initiative was triggered, in my view, because there are quite a few people inside the military intelligence complex are looking out their windows, and they're seeing two things that troubled them greatly. One was that there were all of these articles being written throughout all of 2015 into 2016 about the connection between the ET issue and Clinton and Bill and Podesta. Hundreds of them. That was PRG's doing. That was the political initiative. I was driving that out of Washington, D.C. My publicist was approaching the media, and then I was building the television media, and I was building up connections in the print media and getting these stories out because it was sufficiently established they were going to do it. And the second thing the MIC people saw, people leaning in our direction, was that she was heavily ahead in the polls. The Republicans had 20-some candidates. It was a three-ring circus. She had essentially one opponent, really. O'Malley didn't last very long. And she's ahead in the polls. She's going to be the president. And they calculated rightly that if she won the election, she was going to disclose the ET president. She wasn't going to wait around either. And what would that mean? Well, it would mean that the announcement would come out of the White House, and they were going to get thrown under the bus. It's that simple. The politician would announce it. The people in the party would rally around her. She would get all kinds of glory. And then when all the hard questions come, she'd just say, hey, look, what could we do? The Pentagon wouldn't let us have it. They stonewalled us. They've lied about it for decades. They're out of control, yada, yada, yada. And they throw them under the bus. And they didn't want that. They're not happy about that at all. Because they see themselves as the protectors of the nation, good guys, white hats, doing what had to be done. And they classified the hell out of this, and they felt they had pretty good reason. And so what do you do in that situation? These are people that have great pride in what they do, and they're not doing it for the money. You don't have multimillionaires running around the Pentagon. So they made a decision. A group of them made a decision to try to get out ahead of the issue. A bold decision, which I still don't know how they pulled it off.
Well, let me ask you this really quick. Announcement, would that announcement have been one, we are not alone in the universe, or would it have been two, we have made contact and we have the technology and Roswell was real? I mean, it's two different announcements. Which way would they have gone with it?
There's a third, Jimmy. There's a third. The basic announcement is there's extraterrestrials here. Contact, no contact, that's post-disclosure. There's extraterrestrials here. We are not alone in the universe could mean we've gotten a signal from outer space. Or we found a planet that has life, whatever. No, forget that.
Right.
Extraterrestrials, that's it. That is disclosure. That is all they have to announce essentially to trigger the post-disclosure world.
Right.
And then, of course, all kinds of things are possible. It's not a difficult thing to do, but you need the Pentagon, you need the military intelligence complex in agreement with you if you want it to go well. And, of course, all the coverage that had taken place through her campaign, which was one of the reasons why I did it, was even if it didn't succeed in generating disclosure during the campaign under Obama, it would create so much interest that once the campaign was over and she's won the presidency, there's scores and scores of reporters are going to just descend on her with questions about all of the stuff that had been said during that campaign and all the media coverage. Now, all she had to do was fend them off for 70 days, roughly, while the transition is underway. And then when she's in the White House, say, what do you want to know? Yeah, I'm working on it right now. And she wouldn't have waited around, because there's always a potential that another head of state might do it, such as Vladimir Putin.
Mm-hmm.
So she wanted that legacy. She didn't want to go become the president and Vladimir Putin announces it and she has to say, oh, yeah, I meant to tell you. So they knew this. And so what happened is an amazing thing is that they're thinking along these lines, but so is another fellow by the name of Tom DeLonge.
Mm-hmm.
And because he's a very wealthy rock star, sold a lot of records, very interested in the issues, read scores of books, and he's been poking at him for some time. He could fly anywhere in the country. There's some meeting, some meeting where you have a number of high-ranking people, but the public can attend, party, whatever. He could go there, and he'd try to buttonhole them. And what he may or may not have known it, but he wanted to do what they wanted to do. And when he pitched them, it connected. Whether he was shocked, I don't know. And the pitch was, you guys are the good guys. We need to start getting information out to the public. That'll be good for the country. It'll be good for you. You'll get ahead of the issue, and you need to be shown that you're the good guys. And he showed a lot of respect for them. He showed he was responsible. He wasn't going to go crazy about it. And they're thinking, we want to go ahead of this issue, which means we've got to do something outside the Pentagon. They can't do it from within the Pentagon. It's going to have to be outside. They're going to have to be out of government. But there were plenty of heavy-duty career people there that were retired or about to retire. But if we go out there and one of us is the head of the program, there's going to be a lot of distrust. It's going to be, who's heading the program? Oh, CIA guy. So what if we had a spokesperson, was the head of the program, the CEO of the project, who was a 42 going on 32 rock guy with a huge following and a huge Twitter account and whatever, who relates to people, and he has never worked in government, has never had classified clearance. This is the kind of person you want to front that. And they put this thing together throughout 2015. That was the second, and that's a political initiative. And then DeLonge hints about it. He basically comes out and says what's going to happen. He doesn't say exactly what. In March of 2016 to George Norrie. He said there's going to be books coming, and there's going to be material coming, and I've got an advisory team, and I'm talking to high-level people in the Pentagon, the CIA, and all of this. And I'm going, I don't know. It's hard for me to believe that until a month later, the first book, Secret Machines, was published. And I realized, I guess this thing is real. And I believe the plan was, okay, he's sort of announced it on the show, but the formal announcement, in other words, the announcement of the To the Stars Academy, the project itself and the people involved in it, was probably slated to happen right after the election, sometime between early November and mid-January, or at latest, right after the inauguration. Why? Because if they don't get ahead of the issue before Clinton makes her move, they don't get the PR advantage. And the timing was just about what you would have expected. He hints at it in March. They announce it in December. But what happened, of course, is that she didn't win. Not only did she not win, but in the run-up to the election is when WikiLeaks released all the Podesta emails with Tom DeLonge all over them, and a lot of what was going on, which is only happening in the Democratic side, not surprisingly. DeLonge didn't approach the Republican side because they weren't going to win, and if they had, they weren't going to disclose. So the whole thing was outed, and names were named, and there were some photographs and all of this, and that wasn't supposed to come out. It created a very substantial problem for this project because it's a delicate thing. You've got 30 or 40 people inside the MIC who were planning to have a group come out and start engaging the public and providing information based on authorizations we still don't fully know about how they're doing it and how they're able to do it, and how is it that the opposition to this, and we know there is opposition, has not been able to stop it. That plan was tossed up in the air, and now what the hell do they do now? They've got a new president, and he's unlike any president before. What's going to happen? So they stepped back, reorganized, and then waited a little while to see what's going to happen. And what happened was, virtually from the day of the election, each passing week, things got more and more bizarre, more and more chaotic, until we had a level of, a Category 3 political hurricane, which is now approaching a Category 5. And so you don't do anything in the middle of that, but they had a problem. They had one major problem, and that is that they still couldn't discount Vladimir Putin. While they could have waited,
I've got to take a break right here. As you started to take that pause, I already clicked the commercial. So there you go. We got to. Yeah, that was good. That was a good segue. We'll jump right back.
Putin on the return.
Putin on the return. Our guest tonight, Steve Bassett.
Putin on the return.
We're talking about disclosure. It's Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. More with Steve after this short break. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires. This year we've experienced more than our fair share. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and last month I decided to make sure my family does not have to worry about food should we get caught in a real emergency situation. Introducing Numana, a healthy, storable product that tastes so good that you'll want to eat it every day instead of just during those times of duress. All Numana products have a 25-year shelf life, are MSG and GMO-free, no preservatives, and are made in America. With the Numana pack in your home, you'll be able to sleep at night knowing that you've protected your family. Not only have I tasted and tested, I own it. Now you can too. Just click on the Numana banner on JimmyChurchRadio.com and use the promo code Jimmy when you order. In addition to a discount, we'll send you an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt. Seriously. Go Beckley Tappy.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
Hi folks, what can I say without making claims? CBD is truly the buzzword for health. What does it do? Government institutions will not allow me to say what this wonderful oil does for us. But I can say it's non-GMO and organic. I can say it's 0.003 THC, which in plain English means you won't get high. There are those that want to squash your freedom to buy natural products. Fight back with your purchase power. In the end, it is you that takes care of your health. Go to ancientlifeoil.com. One more time, ancientlifeoil.com.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We're talking disclosure tonight. We have Steve Bassett with us, Executive Director of the Paradigm Research Group. And Steve, before we, are you with us?
Are you with us? Oh, yes.
Okay, I've just got an echo there. Okay. I want to go back to your comment that you made right before the break about Hillary not getting elected. Man, I've got a weird echo going on. Huh. Are you there? Oh, I lost Steve. Yeah, that was a weird echo. Let's bring Steve back. If that was weird. And we'll do a quick reset. But what I wanted to do with Steve as I wait for him to come back to us.
Is it still there?
And no, it's gone. See,
Good.
They're listening, Steve. They're messing with this, man.
Well, my phone is I think my phone is tapped quite often, and it really causes a number of issues. And I used to kind of know when that's happening. And this could be another.
Yeah, and we reset and we're clear. They'll have to come back and chase us down. I wanted to go back before we move forward into Putin. You made a very interesting comment right before the break about Hillary not getting elected and it kind of derailing things a little bit. I want to fast forward to Contact in the Desert. I had a panel on the last night. I don't know if you were in attendance. If you were there, great. But Peter Levenda was on the panel, and he had brought up the 3 videos that were released. And as he brought them up, I had over 1,000 people in that room, standing room only, packed, and I heard murmuring like boos, and I was like, what? And I turned to the audience and I said, well, wait a minute, you guys were excited about those videos, right? Steve, you could have heard a pin drop, not one clap. It was dead silence, and then they started booing, and I thought, what is going on here? And the mood, I think, has changed inside of the community. I can't speak for everything else, but there at that moment, it was a very difficult silence there. And I felt for Peter, who is a friend of mine, and it was a little embarrassing. So do you think that the momentum that was built back in December, do you think it's kind of died off a little bit? And is there a way to bring it back?
Well, first, why do you think they were booing? Did you ask any of them?
Look, I'm on stage. You can go back and watch that video. It caught me by surprise, okay? Right. It caught me by surprise. And then they booed about the New York Times article.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I know the answer to this. I can answer it. The fact is, the truth embargo is in its roughly 71st year. The government's lied and lied and lied for decades and decades. And of course, the military intelligence complex has committed and done a lot of nasty things, oftentimes under the demands of the political ruling class. And there's plenty of people mad at it, upset with it. Now we have a group that's very much connected to the military intelligence complex. Certainly all the CI people are still connected, though they may no longer be on the payroll. And they come out with this. So, not surprisingly, there were a lot of people that jumped on the internet to pick it apart. And accusations were made and assertions were made. The videos were attacked. And this is the internet. You've got millions of people on it, so if just 1% of them decide to issue a definitive statement of their opinion, then you've got a whole lot of opinions flying around. And a lot of people bought into this, meaning, oh, of course, I'm familiar with them. I've read these skeptical analyses. I've read some of the attack analyses and so forth. None of them impress me. They don't have the substance. They stray from common sense, and they're misleading. But there's enough distrust out there that people are prepared to buy into these attacks on this initiative, and I understand that. And so they're not, a lot of them don't want to believe what the To the Stars Academy is putting out. And of course, the president is telling them that the New York Times is nothing but fake news. I mean, this is what I'm saying. This is an extremely complex situation right now, which is where I kind of come in, because these people don't have the luxury. Very few people in that audience have the luxury of focusing on this for 21 years. So let's just say that I have a little broader, more deep perspective on what is happening with this initiative, that what I call the To the Stars Academy. I'm leaving off the arts and science. They went too far. And so they were wrong. But my job is to hopefully provide the insight that will allow people to start seeing this more clearly. Now, there's no question that attacks and assertions of misleading material, as well as even false flags, whatever, is going to cool the momentum. But the thing that's mostly cooling the momentum is the political chaos that's underway, which is consuming the media. We have a full-fledged media frenzy underway. It's already been going for some time. It's going to continue to build.
Right.
And generally, the media can only do one frenzy at a time. They can't. They're not. They can't. They're not a multitasking eating frenzy or feeding frenzy operation. So until this storm settles down, everything is kind of slowed down, and the ET disclosure movement is hardly the only thing. So what I'm going to say is, yeah, things have slowed down, but I wouldn't worry about it.
Well, what I was impressed with when those announcements happened through the New York Times and mass media everywhere on that Saturday on December 16th, and I have stated publicly, I nearly crashed my car. I was, driving, and I heard it on talk radio. And I was so happy, and I know that this community was happy. It was like, okay, finally. But is there a way? What would have to be next for To the Stars, for the media to? It's got to be elevated, for the media to take another swing like they did, and it was great. They knocked it out of the park. But the next one's got to be even bigger. So what is it that they could do? And I'm specifically referring to the Stars. And if this is coming out of the Pentagon, then they're going to have to step up their game this next time around to keep the media involved.
Let me tie it together for you. And this will pick up where I left off before the break. And then I'll tie this together for you. As I said, Clinton loses the election and the entire initiative is thrown up in the air. They clearly have to step back. There were, I think, certain people involved that withdrew, and others had to take their place, and that took some time to work out. And they needed to see what was going to happen with this new president. It could settle down very quickly, and things might actually start to become somewhat normal, but with some new initiatives in place. But what happened, of course, is the hurricane began, a Category 1. It's slowly building toward a Category 5 political hurricane. And if you've ever been in a hurricane, it's probably not a good time to do your homework, play cards, or just critical thinking. So we are in an extremely chaotic situation. So they're waiting that out. They're reorganizing, and the months are going by. In other words, they had to pull back without question and reorganize. Okay, fine. So the question I had in my mind was, when will they launch? How long will they delay the actual launch, which was planned again right after the election, in my view? Who knows? They might have waited till way after the midterms. They might have put it off indefinitely. So what are they going to do? Well, what they did was they announced on October the 11th. With a Facebook video presentation and the launch of the website. And they laid it all out. And that was a big deal. It was low-key, though. They could have done a much bigger splash, but they didn't. Again, in other words, they had already made a decision. We're going to launch, but we're going to slow walk this because there's a hurricane going on over our heads, and that hurricane is completely consuming the media. And so whatever we put out there is going to get some attention, but it's not going to stick. Fair enough. So they launched on October the 11th. Question is why? And the best answer I have, and I'll add here that in my assessment of this, which is essentially a professional guesstimate, could be wrong. And if in fact it wasn't like this, any one of the Do the Stars Academy are welcome to get in touch with me and say, no, Steve, it wasn't like this. Here's the way it was. And that would be great. And I'm happy to correct my assessment. But right now I'm pretty comfortable with it. Why did they go ahead and launch, even though the hurricane was up to a Category 3 by last October? Putin, the wild card. If a disclosure announcement coming out of Clinton early in her administration, without them being out in front of the issue, was going to be a serious PR problem for them. Vladimir Putin announcing the ET presence, which he could do anytime he wants, before they got out ahead of the issue, would be a catastrophe for them. And as it happens, I've been pushing Putin and Xi Jinping, but mostly Putin of late, as perhaps the number one candidate for the disclosure presidency for some time, doing it primarily to put pressure on the Pentagon and the White House. It's not that I'm lobbying for Putin to be the disclosure president. I'm saying, guys, you understand that unless he's on your payroll, he can do it anytime he wants, in which case you've got a real problem. This is my way of putting pressure on. That's what you do. That's what activists do. You find ways to put pressure on the government to get them to do what they don't want to do. And it got more interesting because when I left the country after the election, because I was a little bummed out, and I went to London, and right away I was invited by a national Russian a network to come and to do an interview with them in London. And I said, no, I'll do it in Moscow. They said, fine, you're going to pay your own way. I did. And I gave the interview to the Russian television network crew on May the 3rd. And I had a plan. The interview was heavily political, exopolitical, including talking about Putin as the disclosure president, which no one had ever done in Russian media before. And no one had ever certainly done it on Russian soil. I also arranged for 6 meetings. I had a supporter who had a lot of contacts in Moscow. He's out of Italy, and he arranged 6 meetings for me with about 3 to 4 people each meeting. So it was a total of about maybe 20 people. And most of these people were former Russian and Soviet either military or politicals who had been engaging the issue while they were in government. And now they're out of government and still engaging the issue. We couldn't really have much of an in-depth conversation because I've got 3 Russians in front of me, and I've got a modest, better than average interpreter. Or how deep are the discussions going to be? It was more like, how you doing? How's everything going? I'm into this. What are you into? Blah, blah. That's it. The reason I took those meetings is I know that if I took those meetings, there was no way that Vladimir Putin and the Kremlin wasn't going to know I was in town.
No, they knew.
And ultimately figure out why. I knew the CIA would have known.
Right.
And so I'm thinking, okay, what's going to happen? It was a test. It was my way of testing Putin on this. Because if Putin didn't want to be connected to the idea of him being the disclosure president, that interview was never going to see the light of day. None of it would be used in any of the network's programming, and I would never get the English language version of it, which wasn't the studio quality, but it was a second version done by the journalist. I might even be able to get out of the country. But what happened was I did get out of the country. 5 months later, they did use a little bit of the interview in one of their shows. And then Pravda RU ran 2 articles about my calling for Putin to be the disclosure president, which they're not going to do if Putin doesn't want it. And then I got the English language version. I put that out. I eventually did a press release with the key components, and the American press completely ignored it. English press, except my website. And so what I was able to do was confirm that obviously Putin was not uncomfortable with an American activist connecting him to the possibility of being the disclosure president, not just in American media, but in Russian media in Moscow. Well, guess what? The CIA and the MI6 people obviously were watching this right from the beginning. May, June, July, August, September 2017. And they're thinking, this guy, this Bassett guy, he's crazy. He's an obsessive compulsive, clearly. He won't give up. He's just not going to stop. My God, he might just incite Putin to disclose. this would be a catastrophe. And so I believe they chose to go ahead and launch on October the 11th into the hurricane because Putin was not, they don't control him. I mean, every indication is Putin is doing what he wants to disrupt American democracy, American international relations. He's eating our lunch. He's playing three-dimensional chess, and we're playing hooks and ladders. And so disclosing the ET presence would be incredibly disruptive and undermining our position and embarrassing the hell out of our military intelligence complex. I believe, and if the To the Stars Academy people don't agree, I'd love to hear their opinion. I think that's why they launched. And so where are we now? Okay. They launched it. They made their first major move when they held selective interviews with the New York Times to give them a lot of information, which the Times vetted and decided it was legitimate and wrote the stories. I mean, they're not in cahoots with the New York Times, but obviously they wanted those stories in the Times. They handed over 3 gun camera footages of 3 separate events. First time that's ever happened from any nation ever. There was a little gun camera footage released, I think, into a documentary by somebody that didn't know what the hell they were doing. Nobody even knows where it is now. It's hard to find. But in terms of official releases, never happened because releasing gun camera footage of IAPs being intercepted by high-end military jets, you put out 20 of those, and the truth embargo would blow sky high. And so that stuff was not available. You couldn't get it under FOIA. You couldn't get it, period. And if anybody had tried to leak it out, they'd have gone to prison. Well, the appropriate people inside the Department of Defense, despite what their public relations person says in the front office, declassified those films. They redacted a lot of it. They gave it, short amounts. There's much more to them than just what we saw. And it gave them to Luis Elizondo to present to the New York Times. And those articles were written, huge number of articles. I've got a couple hundred articles related to that on my archive, my print archive, which has nearly over 10,000 articles linked. And you can go read them all if you want to at ParadigmResearchGroup.org. So they did that. But then they haven't done anything since. So you got January, February, March, April, May, June. That's because they're slow walking it. It's not, the momentum obviously is being reduced by that. But the reason they're slow walking it is because the political hurricane is only getting worse and worse. There are major reports that are going to be dropped by the prosecutor, Mueller. There's going to be more indictments, more chaos. God knows what's going to happen. And they realize that if they come out with another big thing, it's just going to be blown away by the hurricane. Yeah, it'll get some attention, but the media can't stay with it. The New York Times, in normal times, would have been all over that issue once they did those first articles. They should have had 4 reporters sitting right in front of Robert Bigelow right away saying, Bob, we'd like to see those metamaterials, dude. And we'd like to know a lot more. And how is it that you actually said there's extraterrestrials here on 60 Minutes? They didn't do that. And obviously, the Congress can't do a damn thing. It's mostly involved in a kind of self-destructive process here where everybody's going to pretty much explode. They should have held hearings. They should have hauled Bigelow in front of a committee within days. They didn't do it. That's because we're in extraordinary times. So they're slow walking it in order to hopefully so that things will resolve themselves. In other words, they're hoping that the political chaos will resolve. And the moment that happens, you can expect them to pick up speed very quickly. But will it resolve? When it will resolve? How much? I don't know. So I'm still quite optimistic, and they're still around. I'm watching to see if the Pentagon suddenly reaches out like one of those one-celled animals and just grabs them and pulls them back in, like they did with Chase Brandon, who came out with that book about Roswell and some extraordinary statements and then disappeared. Right. I later found out because the CIA basically said, Chase, you got out ahead of your skis, dude. That's it. Cut it out right now. That was years ago. This could happen here, but I don't think so. There's too many people involved.
I want to go back to the Bigelow aspect of this too, as well. I want your opinion. I said this: if I was Bigelow, and hear me out on this, Steve. If I was Bigelow, I would go ahead and go the martyr route. I would pull whatever it is that you have a press conference, present this metamaterial, whatever it is, whatever label they want to put on it, state where it came from, crashed, debris, trace evidence, wherever it came from the pen, it came from civilian, whatever it is, have a press conference and fall on your own sword. Because in 1,000 years, there will be a religion called Bigelow. Right? You would have
Jimmy, you got an imagination, dude.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, well, you understand where I'm going with it. You know.
Yeah, but look, Bigelow doesn't have to do that, and he's not going to do that.
I would. Wouldn't you do
bringing out a bunch of no, I wouldn't. But bringing out some metamaterials is not going to wrap the thing up. It's not going to necessarily force disclosure. You could spend 10, 15 years studying metamaterials, right, before you could arrive at some fundamental conclusion. Well, this confirms there's extraterrestrials here. We already know there's extraterrestrials here. The issue isn't him coming out with something that really shows it to be true. We've already got stuff in the public domain more powerful than that. The issue is the government being put in a position where it has to just come out and say it. Right, so rather than studying Bigelow's metamaterials for years, the president can end it in a half a day or a few minutes. So, and he's got a contract with NASA. He's got important research he's doing. He's already made a public statement. He said they're here. He doesn't need to martyr himself because it wouldn't make any difference. He's the wrong guy to martyr himself. If somebody's going to martyr themselves, it might be like the Secretary of Defense, who for whatever reason says screw this. Goes down, gets a bunch of files, really heavy-duty stuff, and holds a press conference. That might very much trigger disclosure, but don't expect that either. The military intelligence complex is designed to protect the national security, and doing things in a way that are not destructive, I think, is pretty much a mandate for them. And so what they're doing is slow-walking a process. But what's important, though, and here's the distinction, as I've said in all my presentations, right now, I can say comfortably that the, quote, military intelligence complex, which includes the people that are part of the To the Stars team and the 30 or so people behind them inside still, who cannot be named, are leading the disclosure advocacy movement. And that is a sea change over everything that's happened in the last 70 years. There have been a couple of preemptive efforts. There's always been internal pressure to maybe do something, and the Emmenegger story is one of those, and there's been a couple of others where some people thought maybe they could maneuver it out a little bit and help the process along, but they all got pulled back in because it was the biggest, most classified thing in the United States. So, but this is way past that. This is far more extensive than anything before, and it's happening at a time, again, when Tom DeLonge gives his interview to George Knapp, and says, hey, I've been meeting with these people in the Pentagon, the CIA, NASA, Skunk Works. We got a big project coming. They're going to start getting information out. We're going to do multimedia, blah, blah, blah. And then we learn that he has already approached the Clinton team, particularly Podesta, for their involvement. That is where these two political threads connected. That's where they connected. And set the stage for essentially a major announcement from them and then disclosure from Clinton. The Democrats win, Clinton wins, the CIA, the military intelligence complex gets a lot of good PR that'll help them in the post-disclosure world. The Republicans lose because they lose the election and they've never done anything on this issue because they're much more tuned to the wishes and desires of the military intelligence complex. So it didn't happen. It blew up. But, as I said, the toothpaste was out of the tube. They couldn't put it back, and they've got the wild card Putin out there. So they've decided, so they have essentially come out. So the military intelligence complex, by virtue of what is happening with the To the Stars Academy, which is being backed up with some kind of authorization and involvement with people inside the Pentagon and CIA, is already established a strong public relations position here. People are not going to forget this. And if they play a key role in ultimately bringing about disclosure, their post-disclosure public relations problems are going to be significantly less. There's going to be a lot of heroes. A lot of people are going to praise them. So this is kind of on track. Again, depending upon how bad the political chaos gets, if things settle down, 2019 looks very, very attractive. And I feel like it could happen next year. And again, as I've said, I confirmed to my satisfaction that Putin doesn't have any problem with this. And as the finish line for the U.S. gets closer and closer, as someone like Putin perceives that the U.S. is getting close to maybe disclosure happening under a U.S. president, he can step in 24 hours and preempt the U.S.'s prerogative there. He can act very quickly. And so all I can say is that the more progress we make, the more tempting it is for him. And then maybe a couple other leaders that are in the same frame of mind. So the situation for disclosure is extremely tenuous. What really remains to be seen is which nation is going to go first at this point. In my mind, it's up to which nation is going to go first.
I thought something for me, which was much more definitive and interesting, wasn't those 3 videos. Those 3 videos, I've and its provenance and all of that. We can push that to the side. But there were 2 other things that happened which I thought were much more extraordinary, and those were those 2 FAA tapes that were released. The one that was off of the coast of was up in Oregon with the F-18s, and the one that was down between Tucson and Albuquerque. And those came from the FAA.
Those are wait a minute. What FAA tapes are you talking about? I don't understand.
Okay, there was two events that happened. But one was about 3 months ago, 4 months ago, and another one about 2 months ago. The first one was up in Oregon near Portland. With the F-18s and their sightings and their communications about, and the tapes are extraordinary to listen to. I mean, that is a UFO sighting by F-18 Hornets. And then the other one that was between Tucson and, of all places, Albuquerque, New Mexico. And that was... But those were,
Let's be clear, Jimmy. Let's be clear, Jimmy. What the To the Stars is doing is loosening the wrappings on the package, all the packages, making it more likely that stuff is going to be reported, more likely things are going to happen, more likely some people may come forward. So that's also a factor.
Well,
by the way, something I didn't mention.
Sure.
Even though they did not launch until October of 2017, it's very notable that it was just the day before the inauguration of the new president when the CIA decided, wow, this is a good time to release to the public domain, really into the public domain, the 13 million CIA files, previously declassified, including a bunch of stuff about ET, UFO stuff and remote viewing, which you could access if you went to the archives. Who can do that? And they put it out in the net. You can easily find those articles. This happened on January the 19th. And 13 million documents. Why did the CIA do that? Why do it then at all? And why time it to the inauguration? Again, this was a simple way for the CIA, which remember has 3 people on the To the Stars Academy team, to become part of the solution, to show that they're not just simply sitting there on all their secrets and not wanting to be helpful. This is a safe thing to do. They were already declassified. They just made them available to every person on the internet, 3 billion people. So that's another example of the military intelligence complex knowing the public relations problems they're going to face on disclosure, getting out ahead of the issue so they can get a little of the love afterwards. And be able to say, look, we were doing what we could do. We did our best. And people are going to go, great, you really did. Thank you so much. This is a serious thing. You've got these national security people, and there's thousands of them, that have been sitting on this issue, either directly or indirectly by just not talking about it, for 70 years. Now, a lot of them are already dead, but there's plenty of people still alive. And they know that it's a huge problem for them. They know that there's a constitutional breach. They know there's other stuff that's been yanked out from under proper oversight in the White House. And they're going to have to answer for that too, but none of them are as big as this. And so I don't blame them for trying to do what they can to improve their public posture on this so that they don't get completely thrown under the bus when it comes down.
Well, how do we know, Steve? But Steve, how do we know? How do we know and trust members of the CIA, ex-corporation guys, ex-company guys, where their job is lies and deception? First off, and second, Elizondo, who is counterintelligence, where that was his gig too. Why are we now supposed to trust and believe what is actually going on? I mean, could the big picture be the opposite of that?
Well, first of all, the intelligence services do a lot of manipulation and lying from clandestine positions. That's their job, and they feel like they're defending the country. These guys have announced they put out their resumes. They're not hiding anything. Yeah, I was CIA intelligence operations South America. I was this. I was that. Christopher Mellon, all over the political intelligence connections between the Congress and they just saying it, right? So here we are, and they're not trying to hide anything. They're not trying to say what they're not. And then the other thing is, you look at what they say. I mean, we know a lot of stuff. We're not completely ignorant here, and we're able to assess everything they're saying. And I have been reviewing it all. I've got 88 videos on my Paradigm Research Group website right now of news coverage, television news coverage, as well as scores of interviews with one or more of these people. And when you review it, I do not see deception. I do not see manipulation. And so they are going. They will eventually earn our trust by putting out valid information, and we will judge them by their actions. So they're off to a pretty good start. Now, again, there's plenty of people attacking them, but what else is new? That was to be expected. My job is not to attack. My job is to assess.
Right.
I've assessed the attacks. I'm not impressed. I've assessed what the team is doing. I'm very impressed, and that's where I'm at. And I assure you that if I come to a different opinion, if I learn things that make me say, "Oh my God, this is a maneuver, this is a misrepresentation," I'm going to tell you. So that's the best I can do. I'm very comfortable with what they're doing. I'm very pleased with what they're doing. I'm very respectful of what they're doing. And while Tom DeLonge is the spokesperson, seems a little odd. It's not as odd as people think. If they knew the full story of Tom DeLonge, I think they might understand that this is not that crazy. And the key spokesperson is Elizondo, by and large. So all can I say? If it wasn't for the political hurricane underway, I'd be planning for the post-disclosure world, Jimmy. I mean, we're going to party, right?
Yeah,
we're and I. Get cases of champagne.
Well, you and I are going to light those fires. I'm with you on that. See. DeLonge is a bit of an enigma. I'll say this. I've gone back and listened to the 3 hours that I did with him, right, on Fade to Black. Mm-hmm. And I've gone back. Right. My original, after the show was done, it was like, oh, that was fun, but, it wasn't that. I went back and listened to it a few times, and it was a much better interview than my memory was. I thought that he was very bright and was on top of his game. And I've talked to him, as you know, many times privately. And I think that he's always been committed. I think he's a funny guy. The private conversations are very animated, and I think he's down to earth with his feet on the ground. That being that being said, you've got this momentum going on here, and if you're going to lose the community, you need to bring the community back. And that's where I think the disconnect is right now. And the community needs it. You roped them in, you got them, you hugged them, and then the wind was let out of their sails. And they
the wind was let out of their expectations.
Well, of course.
I mean, everybody expected them to start, hauling saucers out of hangars.
And what's wrong?
Nothing less than that was going to satisfy them. No, that wasn't going to happen.
But what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that is what I'm saying.
No, what's wrong with it is it's not doable. Look, they are operating. It's not like the entire military intelligence complex is decided this is it. They are a group that has decided to make this move. There's plenty of opposition still in the MIC.
Sure.
And if they get out of line, in other words, they're not doing anything illegal. They're not releasing unclassified material. They're not violating any non-disclosure oaths. They won't even say the word extraterrestrial. So they've been given certain rules and guidelines, and they're staying within them.
So,
and there may be some control of the pace of things, and that's just the way it's going to be. The fact that they're out there at all, we should be thrilled.
There's no question about that. What I am saying, and you're absolutely right, what I'm saying is TTSA, either DeLong or Elizondo, if he's going to be the face of this, has come out and address these issues. That's all. Just come out and address them. The silence is very bad. It's the trust thing that you were talking about.
Not totally silent, Jim. Not he gave a filmed Q&A to the International UFO Congress back in February. He gave a filmed Q&A response to the Brazilian conference just about a month ago. And they did have some issues. They had some problems as they started to engage our community, which was good because it indicated they're not going to pretend we didn't exist. They do. I think there's respect there for all that's been done by the community. But the community is frustrated, angry, irritable, because we've been in an intellectual ghetto for 70 years. Let me tell you, live in a ghetto for 70 years, you get a little testy. And we know the questions to ask. And so if they get too close to us, we start firing off all these questions that they can't answer. And so they had to kind of step back. But it's notable that Elizondo will make his first public engagement of our community at the MUFON Symposium at the end of this month, July 24 to 27. He is going to be live. He's going to be speaking there. I anticipate the questions will be controlled. It's not going to be people coming up to a mic. But they're trying to then re-engage us. And I think they deliberately decided to use MUFON as sort of a door to engage us because it's an established organization. There's some structure and so forth. And they're going to be working with MUFON directly, which is fine. So that's about to happen in just a few weeks. But again, you cannot underestimate the effect of this extraordinary political chaos on anybody's plans, particularly plans like this. Look, this political chaos is in the process of consuming NATO. It's got Britain up in arms. It's got Germany is completely confused, right? We've got a trade war beginning with China. This is way off the scale, Jim. Mm-hmm. As a political observer for a long time, I can tell you we are in Wonderland. And they are having to try. They never expected this. They had a plan, and it was a good plan, and it was based on Hillary Clinton becoming president, regardless of what they thought about her politics. She was going to disclose, and there's a whole track record of the Clinton team going all the way back to '93. She discloses, they get out ahead of it, everybody wins. So that election disrupted their plans. It disrupted the plans of countless organizations, initiative, projects. Then it started undoing stuff that had been done for years, literally tearing down structures, not just confusing future projects. So we're in uncharted territory, and all I can say is that while they're slow walking it, they are doing some things. Look, in May the 8th, DeLong, again, notice how it's kind of low-key. He puts up a write-up on his Facebook page. And in this write-up, he says, we're making some progress. We're having meetings on the Hill, private. We're having meetings in Hollywood with big producers and studios for some serious movies and things like that. Notice, behind the scenes. That they can do. Public stuff is a problem. Trying to get a story in the New York Times is a problem. But having some private meetings on the Hill? Sure. So God knows what's in the works, potentially. And it takes time for these kinds of things to develop. And if it's behind the scenes, it's not going to create much of a wave for them. So that's in May. He initiated that. So it hasn't stopped. And I have every right to be utterly impatient about this. After 21 years. Hey, Stan just retired after 50 years of engaging this issue. Right?
I know. Before I say goodnight and thank you for hanging on for a few extra minutes, sure. You are working on a film. So tell us about that and where are you with it? And I believe you're trying to raise some funds too as well.
It's complicated. I've got a production deal with Amar Singh Kalika and Never Ending Life Productions. We have initial teaser. It's not a trailer, a teaser put together, and we have a website, disclosure.film. But until we can raise $100,000, we can't start production. And this film will literally be the political story that I've been telling you with some other stuff. But it'll be involving interviewing a whole lot of principals involved in this story. About 55 total of the targets. So basically a political story from 93 to 2017. It's called Disclosure. But again, because of the political storm underway, we cannot really get focused attention. So we're not able to raise money right now. That doesn't mean a donor couldn't turn up tomorrow and say, look, what do you need to get started? $100,000. Okay, we can start production. The total budget for the film and the book is $600,000.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess you could say it's in suspension. The website is still up. The teaser is up. But we are kind of in the position to the Stars Academy. You can't compete with a hurricane of this magnitude. You got to stay indoors and bunker down. Shut the windows, right?
Right.
Remove all the patio furniture and wait for the storm to pass. And so right now, I guess you could say it's in suspension. But if there's any significant donor out there that would like to see this would be a major documentary. If it's done the way we want to do it, it will not be some Netflix documentary. It'll be potentially full screen theater distribution doc. And that's where that's at, Jim. So again, patience. What can I say?
You've always continued to roll that rock uphill, and you know you've got the respect of this community, man. And every time that I see you, I say the same thing as I shake your hand, and I just keep rolling that rock uphill, Steve, and never change. Okay.
Okay, I will, Jim. You've been great supporter as well, and big things are ahead of us. Just hang in there. This is going to resolve eventually. There's too much is already out. Too much has happened. Something's going to give. I hope it's not Putin. I hope the U.S. will be the leader on this.
Well, you've already.
But I don't expect that to happen until after.
I watched all of those tapes out of Moscow, and I just thought to myself, man, he has just stirred the hornet's nest. And I was nervous watching those for you. And the fact that you did get out of there alive, right, it says a lot. And you know that Putin was well aware and everybody else that's part of his circle. So you never know, man. You may have poked the bear.
Well, I think I did. I wasn't worried about getting out alive. I was worried about maybe being stopped and have a little interview, right? Where you come on over to we got to go over the room. We got to chat a little bit, right? Which would have been an indication of some displeasure. But that didn't happen. In fact, nothing has happened. And I've got the two Pravda RU articles. Actually, are in my presentation now, but I got to get them up on my website. You can find them if you go to the Print Media Archive at ParadigmResearchGroup.org and look in the December of 2017. You can find the two Pravda RU articles. They're right there, and you can read them. And basically, Pravda RU is a lot of people say, well, it's just a kind of a Russian tabloid site, but I assure you the Kremlin knows what's going on in Pravda RU.
They own it.
Same for Sputnik.
They own it, man.
Yep. And so these articles are basically saying, this activist wants Putin to disclose. And I'm going, okay, that's good. Now, it hasn't turned up on RT. It hasn't turned up elsewhere that I'm aware of. And so, again, that was an indicator. But all I learned was that he's not uncomfortable with it. That doesn't mean he's going to do something right away. There's an awful lot going on right now.
Wasn't it Medvedev that slipped up on the news one night and said that he's got the what did he say? I forget.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
The cameras
was, after a news interview. After a news interview, he's in the hall talking to one of the reporter types. After it's over, but she has the mic on. she asked him about secret books and stuff, and the secrets get passed from one president to the next. And he said, yeah. And he literally referred to the ET issue and said that you can learn a lot about that in a film called Men in Black. Was that a slip-up? I don't think so. I think it was intentional. It was another little message to the U.S. We're not chopped liver here. We're not potted plants. We know about this too. Just letting you know. And the American media, this is so classic, the American media are naturally immediately interpreted as a joke, because obviously it's all a joke, right? Under the truth embargo, it's all a joke, and that's what you have to keep telling yourself so you don't feel bad about the fact that you've committed a journalistic failure that history will be talking about for 1,000 years, whatever.
Right.
But of course, but it turns out he wasn't talking about Men in Black with Will Smith. He was talking about a documentary in Russia called Men in Black, which was a serious doc. So yeah, little thing there. Did they follow up? No. But look, believe me, Russia has done more research on this. Well, Russia has done. The Soviet Union and Russia have done tons of research in ET issues. A lot of it's been more publicized than in the U.S. There's tons of people, tons of military and pilots and astronauts that have made statements that kind of confirm it. The Russians know what's going on. Do they have a crash vehicle or more like we do? Don't know. But do they know there's an ET presence? You better believe they do. And they have their own reasons, and have always had their own reasons for maintaining their position, which is basically an embargo. They're not acknowledging it, but they're not stopping research on it. They're not cashiering people that talk about it. Give a interview to whether it's George Knapp or Hesseman or some of the others that have gone over there. So our CIA has got to know that they don't have some extraterrestrial phobia, or they're afraid of addressing this issue nationally. They must know that, and therefore they have to assume they have to assume that they could act at any time. If they're not doing that, they're making a huge mistake. And so all I can say is right now, and I've said this: if I had to list the heads of state most likely to disclose, Putin is at the top right now, not our president. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah, and and this is whatever anybody thinks about Putin. I'll lay down the facts right now. He does what he wants, and he's got the respect of Russia propping him up, and he makes his own decisions. There is nobody else there telling him what to do.
Absolutely, and the circumstances are ideal. He's authoritarian. He's got a high approval rating. The Russian people and the Putin and the political class are very irritated. They've been disrespected by the West since they basically conceded their republics and stood down from the Cold War. They've been, I guess you would say, abused. We're constantly talking about how they're this and that, and their economy is the equivalent of Rhode Island or whatever the hell. They don't like it. They're a vast nation with a huge history. Believe me, if they get their act together, they could be the next China. The point is that they don't like this. And so this idea that if Putin were to disclose, the Russian people would be thrilled. Russia would be elevated. Putin would be elevated. It would be a real kick in the butt to the West. On paper, it looks like a no-brainer for Russia under these circumstances. Again, I've done it. I just did it again tonight. I've sent the message to the CIA and the Pentagon and the White House. Whatever the hell. It gets you this: is that guys, you're kind of in a race, but you're like the hare. I mean, you're like you're like the hare that's not taking its time. No big deal. It's going to win. It can't lose. And meanwhile, the turtle, that would be Putin, is just slowly heading for the finish line. And suddenly you're going to wake up one morning and discover the turtle won. And I'm telling you, Jim, if Putin were to disclose the ET presence before the United States, it will be a geopolitical catastrophe. Flat out. Right? I'm not talking nuclear war here. I'm talking geopolitical catastrophe.
Right.
In terms of the status of the United States in the world versus Russia, and all of the fallout that's going to happen in the U.S. because there's no upside, there's no glory. There's nothing but condemnation and shame. There'll be committee hearings, and they won't be positive. It'll be looking for everybody they can drag in front of the cameras and excoriate. It will just be awful. And so I hope to God somebody in the government high enough to influence decision making is hearing this. I mean, I've only been talking about it for 20 years. No, not 20, 17 years, right?
Yeah. Well,
and by the way, it's not 1,000. I'm over 1,200 interviews.
Oh, 1,201. Let's 1,201. But this is, I think, what is important to realize here. We're always, especially because we live here, but we're always focused on what goes on inside of the United States, and we have our blinders on. The fact remains, and it's very simple. Not only is Putin his own man and he makes his own decisions, but that is something that is completely out of Washington's hands. Trump or otherwise, any POTUS that is there, it is out of their control. And I think you're right about that. I really, really do. That's an interesting concept. And again, we have blinders on here. We don't really consider a play like that, and a geopolitical storm. I could not. Not only that, how about a petrodollar storm too, as well, that they've already started to move forward with China and to get off of the petrodollar, and that would be something that would, man, yeah. I need to think about this.
We can't forget China.
No,
because remember, China does have an authoritarian leader, Xi Jinping, who's president for life now. And I assure you, there's nobody in the Chinese military that's going to tell Xi, look, you don't have a need to know the CT thing. You just leave it to us. I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got China with 1.3 billion people that feels it's the oldest civilization on the earth right now. And frankly, I think in many cases they feel they are the superior civilization right now. And they have been disabused by the West in a number of ways, and they really want to assert themselves as the great power they're becoming, whether it's going to Mars or building islands in the South China Sea. And so Xi Jinping could say, why shouldn't I be the disclosure president? Why shouldn't I make the announcement? One reason may be that he may feel it could loosen his authoritarian control. I don't know. But he would gain so much. And so these two leaders, by the way, who are involved now in this chaos, obviously Russia and Putin are completely consumed in this hurricane. They got, and Russians are being indicted left and right. He's being accused of everything in the world. Meanwhile, in Xi Jinping in China, he's not involved in a political chaos. But he's there. He's getting into a trade war with the United States.
Right.
Hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs, and we're sailing destroyers and flying over his artificial islands.
Right.
And so we're irritating him. Whether it's justified or not doesn't matter. And so this idea that both of these authoritarian, high control leaders with relatively high approval ratings, one has a huge landmass that China would love to have a piece of, and the other has a huge population. Right? China's got 4 times as many people as we have. Russia's got 3 times as much land. This idea that these two leaders are going to go, the U.S. deserves this. We'll wait. They've been taking a lot of time, but it's theirs. It's their brass ring. We're not going to take it from them. This is ridiculous. And so once again, I realize America's in a place where it can't get anything done. It's completely locked up. It's like the engine completely froze. The oil ran out of the crankcase, and we're not going anywhere except backwards. I understand that. Obviously, that better change pretty soon. But one of the things we're not going, we in an official capacity, is the ET issue. Except now that we have this MIC originated group that is going public and is making a maneuver here. That's something. But the problem that they have is that to the extent that they succeed, to the extent that they get more out, and they stir the American people even more, and people get more excited that the finish line is coming closer, the more likely Xi Jinping or Putin may say, okay, looks like you're about to cross the finish line. Boop. Step right in, cross the line, get the blue ribbon, get the trophy, get the medal.
I was hoping for answers tonight. Now I've got questions. Thanks, Steve.
Sure.
I really appreciate that.
happy to help, my friend.
Hey, are you speaking anywhere?
No.
Okay.
I did 15 conferences, 21 lectures.
Right.
And at this point, I'm not booked, and I'm not necessarily unhappy about that.
Take a break. Thank you so much, Steve. Behave and be well.
Okay, Jim.
And I can't wait to
I
get
will.
you back on the show again. Okay, be safe out there.
Thank you.
Steve Bassett, unbelievable conversation. Now, ParadigmResearchGroup.org. And I invite everybody here to go and not only look at those Pravda and read through those 2 articles because they are amazing, but you've got to go and watch the interviews that Steve did for Russian television over there. And I've got to tell you, I've watched them many, many times. Some of the best stuff that you're ever going to see, and it was done in Moscow. So go and check out all of that. And like he said, he's got a little teaser put up about this film. I want to see that film happen. The other, I've got to get out of here. I've got to roll credits, but I just want to say this really quick: that the questions raised here, I think, is something that we all really need to think about. We all understand what the media is doing right now with the political situations, not only the divisiveness that has been generated, but there is some angst going on out there. And it's not just here in the United States. This is a global situation that's going on. Would Putin, would Russia and China react first when it comes to the disclosure question in front of the United States? And there is reasons for it. I think it's an amazing set of circumstances that Steve has presented all of us. And tomorrow night is Fader night. It's open lines all night long. And I can only imagine right now what is going to go on tomorrow night on Fade to Black with all of you. With that, I've got to get out of here. Tomorrow night, Barrett Brown is going to be here. So you're not going to want to miss that show. He's going to be here in the front half, and then we're going to take phone calls and move on to Fader night after that. With that, what an amazing conversation. Yeah, that's right. I blew through all the commercials tonight. Sometimes I just don't want to stop the conversation. I want to remind everybody right now that Soul Tech is going on August 9th through the 12th up at ECETI Ranch. Go to soultechgathering.com. Okay, we've got day passes that are up there now, too, as well. We've got a few full weekend passes left. Go and get everything booked up at soultechgathering.com. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Camarion. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster, Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA, The Planet. This broadcast only copyrighted 2018 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Until tomorrow night, everybody be safe. Go Beckley Tappy.